Chapter 591. The truth was that when Loopy Toad had used the basic dog skills, Taoist Bronze Turtle had already sensed what he suspected to be the power of Heavenly Tao, but he hadn't dared confirm it. When those hundreds of meteor-like punches landed on his Turtle Shield spell chain armor, Taoist Bronze Turtle had a look of disbelief in his eyes. The power of Heavenly Tao mixed in with the punches had directly shattered his chain armor and pierced through his body. If it hadn't been for the fact that this power of Heavenly Tao didn't seem to be at its full strength, he would have already died just now. Taoist Bronze Turtle was actually right, because Dog 2 could only unleash 70% of its power at the moment, and that was when he was relying on the Bone King. If he had been like Evil Sword God and relied on his own power to unleash the full power of level 10 of Sword Tao, Taoist Bronze Turtle would have died long ago. Which Demon Lord? Let's retreat for now. There's something wrong with this green-furred dog. Taoist Bronze Turtle vaguely sensed that something was wrong. This was clearly a spirit dog that had yet to take human form, but it actually had the power of Heavenly Tao in its body. It was very obvious that either this dog wasn't normal, or its owner wasn't simple. After being pierced by Loopy Toad's power of Heavenly Tao, Taoist Bronze Turtle calmed down, and could only think of these two possibilities. However, Taoist Witch Demon was already ready to strike, and wasn't going to stop at that moment. Don't be afraid, Witch Demon Lord, get behind me. I'll definitely make this mongrel dog pay a price dozens of times higher than your injuries. Taoist Witch Demon didn't listen to Taoist Bronze Turtle's advice at all. While Taoist Bronze Turtle was blocking Dog 2's attack, he had already set up the ghost flags and a large array on the ground. At that moment, he let out a roar and formed a seal. Countless pitch-black clouds in the sky rolled over like a sea of clouds, giving off a great sense of pressure. Elder One was inexplicably shocked. Ghost soldiers of this level definitely weren't something that Taoist Witch Demon could summon on his own. The ghost flags he had set up on the ground were most likely fused with the power of the Ghost Emperor of the South. The strength of these ghost soldiers was close to that of a nascent soul cultivator, and the ghost generals among them were even at Demon King level. The problem was that there were too many of them. There weren't just a dozen or 20 of them. They were constantly being created in that roiling black sea of clouds. Brother Dog, you must destroy the ghost returning array. Elder One reminded him in the peace consulate. In the current situation, Taoist Bronze Turtle had been seriously injured. If he went out to help this dog brother, he would definitely have the upper hand in the situation. However, Elder One was afraid that these two cunning people still had other tricks up their sleeves. The Toad clan had a lot of offensive spells, and most of them were used for support and defense. Most of them were control-type spells. Therefore, when facing opponents with long-range attack capabilities, they would usually appear quite weak. Therefore, it was not that Elder One did not want to go out, but he was afraid that his rash action would instead become a stumbling block. At least from the current situation, even without him, this dog brother still had the upper hand. Elder One had decided in his heart that if the other party was going to sacrifice any big killing move, he would immediately rush out and do his best to block the righteous dog brother, helping the other party to escape. Of the three envoys, Taoist Witch Demon had always been the most difficult to deal with. Soldiers and generals, listen up. Tear that green-furred mongrel up ahead to shreds. Taoist Witch Demon guarded the ghost array he had set up. In his hand was a very small ghost flag, which was an important key to give orders to all the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that had been created in the sky after the ghost array was set up. This resentment was too strong. The ghost soldiers and ghost generals in the sky were thousands of zhang away from Loopy Toad, but even so it still felt oppressed. This was something that the golden light shield couldn't protect. It could stop these evil spirits from invading the body, but it couldn't stop this kind of strong mental pressure. Dog 2 gritted its teeth. It had to deal with Taoist Witch Demon faster than it had with Taoist Bronze Turtle. Right now, the number of ghost soldiers and ghost generals could still be counted with the naked eye, but if the battle dragged on, it wouldn't be able to deal with these tens of thousands of ghost soldiers and ghost generals at the same time. Kill! This dense mass of evil spirits roared and screamed wildly, their ear-piercing voices shaking heaven and earth. Loopy Toad was accumulating power. The spikes on its glove abruptly sprouted out in large numbers. It had already unleashed the power of the 10-meter sword Tao to the limit of what it could do. It's no use, mongrel dog. Taoist witch demon sneered. These ghost soldiers and ghost generals contain the power of the ghost emperor of the south. Given your strength, there's no way you can resist the power of a demon god. Your ugly fist technique has no effect on my ghost soldiers and ghost generals. In the end, as soon as Taoist witch demon said this, 2 ghost soldiers charged at the green-furred dog from the left and right at the same time. Butt-face movements were swift and agile. He dodged the pincer attack of the 2 ghost soldiers at a tricky angle. This swift reaction was thanks to Sheep and Jinka's training earlier. To Dog 2, these ghost soldiers really looked a little clumsy. They were slower than Sheep and weaker than Jinka. Loopy Toad took a deep breath, took out its tape recorder from its mouth, and started to play Dragon Fist. My right paw opens the sky. I turn into a dog, move the mountains and rivers, and fill up the cracks. Aura, 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 aura. Oh, hit, 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 hit. Its basic dog skills became faster and faster, and the ghost soldiers who swooped down from the sky cried out the moment they touched the shadow of the fist, and were directly shaken to pieces. What's going on? Taoist witch demon stared at this scene in disbelief. It can't be wrong. Witch demon lord. There's the power of heavenly Tao in this mongrel dog's body. Taoist bronze turtle struggled to prop himself up. He had already used several self-healing spells in a row, but none of them had the slightest effect on his internal injuries. This was enough to prove that this was the power of heavenly Tao. After being hit by the power of heavenly Tao, it was nonsense to rely on self-healing spells to heal in a short period of time. How can a mongrel dog that hasn't transformed have the power of heavenly Tao? Taoist witch demon was a little weak. Taoist bronze turtle. That's the strange thing. Witch demon lord, I think it's better if we retreat first. Retreat? The truth was that Taoist witch demon hadn't thought about retreating at all. How honorable were they, the envoys of 2 demon territories? They were actually helpless against a green-furred dog. He grit his teeth. No matter what. At the very least, we have to break its golden light shield and kill some of its might. But just as Taoist witch demon was about to have the ghost soldiers and ghost generals attack Loopy Toad again, Loopy Toad suddenly stopped. Because at that moment, Loopy Toad suddenly realized that it actually didn't have to do it personally at all. Hadn't Jinyuan, that guy, given it an immortal seal master seal before? It hadn't used it even once. With the idea of giving it a try, Loopy Toad spat out the immortal seal master seal from its mouth. The moment it injected spirit energy into it, a holy light, like that of an angel, appeared in the sky. Then the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that filled the sky were directly dispersed. Chapter 592. In the blink of an eye, the instant the red-haired young man's figure descended from the sky, all the ghost soldiers and ghost generals that filled the sky were cleanly purified by the holy light that accompanied him. Taoist witch demon and Taoist bronze turtle turned pale with fright. This person was very terrifying. His appearance had a purifying effect which directly purified heaven and earth. And his aura actually directly affected the ghost array, causing it to directly malfunction. Taoist witch demon stared at this scene in disbelief. He squinted at the ghost array flag, and then realized that cracks had actually appeared on it, and it finally directly crumbled along the flagpole. Taoist witch demon. He had stuck a tempered membrane on the array flag. This person's background wasn't simple at all. But judging from the green-furred mongrel's actions just now, this human cultivator seemed to have been summoned here by the green-furred mongrel. Taoist witch demon immediately had a guess. There should be no mistake. This person should be the green-furred dog's owner. Senior, as a member of the human cultivation world, if possible, please don't interfere in the affairs of my demon world. Taoist witch demon bowed very politely. The arrival of this kind of heaven-defying expert had already destroyed the balance in the demon world. And Taoist witch demon felt that Demon Saint definitely wouldn't sit idly by like before. In fact, Taoist witch demon wasn't wrong. Because of the will of the demon world, Demon Saint would be the first to notice the slightest disturbance. Immortal Jinyuan's appearance had caused a huge commotion, and it was impossible for Demon Saint not to notice. As Taoist witch demon had said, Immortal Genuine's existence had already destroyed the balance. Demon Saint thought of himself as a business-like demon. If this red-haired young man did anything overboard, he would consider stopping him. On the holy pillar, Demon Saint narrowed his eyes. Because this young man who had been summoned here wasn't the owner of this spirit dog. The gaze of the dog's owner had left a deep psychological shadow in Demon Saint's heart. That terrifying gaze and that pair of unforgettable dead fish eyes were like a nightmare that could not be dispelled from his mind. Ever since he had succeeded as Demon Saint, there had never been anyone who could give him such enormous psychological pressure with just a gaze. Like what had been said before, when experts exchanged blows, the gap between them could be judged from the look in their eyes. This red-haired youth's overall strength was weaker than the dog's owner's, but he should be on par with him. On the holy pillar, the Beast Saint looked down and made a judgment. On the other side, after receiving the Master Seal's message, Immortal Genuine was directly teleported here. Immortal Genuine had been repairing Drought Star earlier, and was now suddenly teleported here. Although it was a little sudden, he was actually a little happy. It seemed that Senior Dog hadn't forgotten about him. Immortal Genuine turned his head to look at Senior Dog. Senior Dog was dressed in yellow tights today, which looked pretty trendy. The Jade Greenbone club in his hand exuded an indescribable mysterious power. As expected of Senior Dog, it could actually fuse the power of the heavenly Tao into a magic tool. Immortal Genuine was deeply astonished. Why didn't he think of this? This was probably the difference between him and Senior Dog. Just as he was sighing inwardly, one of the Demon Realm domain envoys in charge of setting up ghost formations suddenly spoke to him. Immortal Genuine gave Taoist Witch Demon a disdainful look. I only listened to Senior Dog. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle's faces changed at these words, and they were so shocked that they almost turned to stone. Senior Dog? At that moment, the two envoys as well as Elder One hiding in the Peace Consulate couldn't help sucking in cold breaths of air. It turned out that this red-haired youth wasn't the green-furred dog's owner. Instead his underling? That was very interesting. What were you doing before I came? Dog 2's tone was completely different from before, and became a little more profound. After all, it had played the role of the Divine Messiah dog before, and it was very clear about its role. In any case, as long as Genuine was around, it just needed to maintain its senior persona. Immortal Genuine cupped his fists in a salute and replied very politely, Senior Dog, this junior is still repairing Drought Star, and is currently more than halfway done. Dog 2. Well done. Did I disturb you by summoning you this time? Disturb? How can a senior's summoning be considered a disturbance? This is a rare opportunity for you to learn. The red-haired young man waved his hand and bowed to Dog 2. Senior casually blew up Drought Star's surface with a grade 10 spell. Actually, you can learn a lot from repairing Drought Star. It feels like you're playing Minecraft. As soon as Immortal Genuine finished speaking, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were stupefied again. Grade 10 spell. And it had almost blown up the surface with a grade 10 spell. How could this dog be so awesome? Then what on earth were those two shoddy fist techniques from before? So this green-furred dog hadn't used its full strength at all, and was just playing around? The two envoys were dumbstruck. The conversation between this red-haired young man with unfathomable strength and this green-furred dog was so shocking that the atmosphere in the room froze for a moment. The two envoys' thoughts directly froze, and they didn't know what to say. This junior is slow-witted. May I ask why Senior Dog has summoned me this time? Immortal Genuine said softly. I tested my fist techniques on the two juniors in front of me just now, and I'm a little tired, Loopy Toad said. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Loopy Toad. I'm old, and there are times when I can't compete with these energetic youngsters, especially when it comes to this kind of boring battle that makes me sleepy, and I can't lift my spirits at all. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Immortal Genuine smiled. Then, Senior, do you want me to take action? Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Loopy Toad. Deal with them as you see fit, but don't kill them. Remember to leave them breathing. I still have something to ask them. Very well, Senior. As soon as he said that, immortal Jin Yuan's aura was released, causing heaven and earth to tremble. An energy mixed with primordial qi shot out from under the red-haired young man's feet and headed straight for the two demon envoys. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were already shivering all over. They only had one thought now, and that was to run. Run as far as they could. This person's strength was too terrifying. Far beyond theirs, at that moment, the two envoys sensed the imminent danger of death. They took out their trump cards and fled like mad, turning into two streaks of light as they flew away from here, not even having time to gather up the shattered ghost flags on the ground. Want to run? Immortal Jin Yuan smiled slightly. Of course that didn't exist. Chapter 593. Taoist Bronze Turtle was still injured, but this was already the fastest he could run for his life. He felt that even if he had been in perfect condition, he might not have been able to escape as fast as this time. In the face of a true crisis of death, the strength that could erupt from one's body was completely different. Immortal Jin Yuan wasn't in a hurry, and watched as the two of them turned into streams of light and swiftly disappeared into the horizon. Throughout the entire process, Dog 2 maintained a very calm appearance. It knew that there was no way Jin Yuan would let these two people escape. Sure enough, after about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the red-haired young man made his move. His palm was like a five-fingered mountain, and layers of nomological laws wrapped around his fingers. It directly penetrated the air around Yuan Fang, causing the space there to shake incessantly until it directly shattered in the end. Immortal Jin Yuan directly reached into the shattered wall of space, and in the end, directly pulled out two figures. They were none other than Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle, who had already run for half an incense stick. Using magic treasures, the two of them had already traversed tens of thousands of li in the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. But they still couldn't escape this punishment. Halfway through their escape, they felt the space behind them shatter one after another, and the collar of their Taoist robes was violently yanked by a tremendous force. When they came back to their senses, they were firmly gripped by a giant palm that looked like it had walked out of a painting of the wilderness. Under this enormous pressure, the two territory envoys couldn't even breathe. Loopy Toad pretended to be unperturbed. But in fact, this scene was a huge blow to it. It wasn't just Loopy Toad. Elder One was also inexplicably shaken by this scene. What kind of formidable power was this? It was simply like a miracle. A palm stretching out from the void caught the two territory envoys who had already been on the run for a long time without giving them the slightest chance at all. Dog 2 knew that this was the red-haired young man deliberately flexing his muscles in front of it. He wanted to show off his strength. But this scene was really frightening. It was like watching a blockbuster movie. When Little Master Ling usually cast spells, he would pay special attention to spells with particularly magnificent special effects, and would do his best to avoid them. This actually had something to do with his personality. Little Master Ling was used to keeping a low profile, so he would pay special attention to this point. Immortal Jin Yuan, on the other hand, could be said to have completely different personalities. Since he had chosen to make a move, he would use his most gorgeous spell to capture the other party. It had been the same on Drought Star. Thinking about it carefully, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that gorgeous had already become synonymous with Jin Yuan. By the time Immortal Jin Yuan released the two envoys, the faces of Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle were already bruised from the tremendous pressure just now. Both of them felt dizzy and spun around on the spot as if they were drunk. What's going on? Who practiced Tai Chi? Still running. Immortal Jin Yuan stared at the two of them and smiled slightly. This smile reminded Dog 2 of Fang Xing. It was Fang Xing's trademark black-bellied smile. He raised his hand and drew a few golden lines in the air with his finger. Then, with a flick of his finger, the golden lines intertwined with each other on the ground like a fairy weaving clothes. In the end, they formed a golden cage. The moment they were trapped in the golden cage, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle felt powerless. This golden cage sealed off their source of power, and they couldn't use their demon energy at all. Furthermore, there was a weakening effect in the golden cage, which made it impossible for them to summon any strength at all. After showing off his skill, The red-haired young man turned around and bowed to Loopy Toad again. Senior Dog, please excuse me. Of all the restraining spells this junior has, only this grade 9 prison painting spell is the most skillful. Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle almost spat blood. Forget a grade 9 spell. A grade 7 spell was more than enough to trap them. Wait! At that moment, Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle caught on to a key point they had overlooked. Did this person just say, this was a grade 9 spell? Their faces were already as bruised as seaweed in sauce. A grade 9 spell? Then this person's strength was most likely at peak true immortal level, or perhaps a venerated immortal? Their worldview had already collapsed. Sure enough, human cultivators were all cunning. Wasn't it said that there were no venerated immortal big shots in the human world? Why was it that a green-furred dog could casually summon a venerated immortal underling? Nowadays, even venerated immortal big shots had started to call themselves juniors? Loopy Toad nodded its head and pretended to be calm. In fact, it was already dizzy from the red-haired young man's performance. Ghost. Set after set of high-level spells, full of special effects, it was really gorgeous. That palm you used to capture them just now wasn't bad. Loopy Toad couldn't help praising him. Immortal Jinyuan bowed respectfully. Senior, you're too kind. That was just the grade 10 spell Palm of Heaven. Grade 10? Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle turned pale with fright. Very good, just a little bit more and you'll surpass me. Loopy Toad said. Immortal Jinyuan was extremely respectful to Dog 2. Of course, I still can't figure out Senior Dog's spell. Back then, Senior cast the spell the entire time without any hand seals or even making any movements. You directly used your aura to disperse the grade 12 spell. This junior still can't forget it. Grade 12 Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle already didn't know what to say. At that moment, Dog 2 looked at the expressions of the two territory envoys. Their faces were deathly pale, as if they had been washed with a mixture of Tide and Mystery Laundry detergent. Senior Dog, how should we deal with them? Immortal Jinyuan asked Loopy Toad. Dog 2 looked at Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle. Actually, it hadn't intended to kill them from the beginning. Although the other side had been heartless, Loopy Toad felt that it couldn't be unjust. Killing these two territory envoys now was just a matter of saying hello. And Jinyuan would be able to squash them like ants as effortlessly as blowing off dust. But even if these two territory envoys suddenly died, it wouldn't solve the problem. Taoist Horseface's death earlier had been punished by Demon Saint's restriction, so Loopy Toad couldn't be blamed. Thus, after learning the ins and outs of the entire matter from Elder Wind's grandson, Loopy Toad had been wondering if there was an appropriate way to resolve the dispute between the four territories, so that they could develop peacefully in the future. The demon world had 108 territories, and the four inner territories were the core. As long as the conflict in the core could be resolved, all the demons in the demon world could unite and become one family. So after careful consideration, Loopy Toad made the following decision: let them go. Very well, Senior Dog. The red-haired young man didn't know what Senior Dog was going to do, but he obeyed obediently. With a wave of his hand, he directly removed the golden prison. It had already put on a show of strength. When Loopy Toad approached the two territory envoys again, it could clearly feel them trembling. I'm sparing your lives for now so that you can pass on my message. Loopy Toad stared at them and said unhurriedly, in half an hour, we'll descend on the three territories and destroy them all. Then Loopy Toad thought for a bit and felt that this sounded a little biased, so it changed its tone. Not just the three territories but the Eastern Territory as well. Hearing this, the expressions of the two envoys, including Elder One, changed dramatically. On the side, Immortal Jinyuan understood a little what Senior Dog wanted to do. Chapter 594. This sudden decision was beyond Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle's expectations. They could tell that this wasn't a joke. Furthermore, this red-haired young man did indeed have the strength to do so. For a venerated immortal, tearing apart a planet was very easy, let alone a mere 4 territories. In their extreme consternation, The envoys of the two territories left as if they were fleeing. They had to go back and discuss countermeasures with the demon kings of the inner territories. Senior Dog, are you doing this to make the four demon gods of the demon world bury the hatchet and unite once again? Immortal Zhenyuan asked a moment later. Dog 2 nodded. The truth was that the demon world had been very peaceful for a time, but 100 years ago, when a new generation of demon gods had come to power, disputes had never subsided. There were a lot of extremists in the leadership of this generation of demon gods. Venerated Ox of the West and Ghost Emperor of the South were both pro-war. But Loopy Toad's impression of Turtle Devil of the North had always been that he didn't have his own opinions. The dispute between the Eastern Territory and the other three territories this time had actually been single-handedly instigated by the demon gods of the Western and Southern territories. One of the biggest characteristics of the pro-war faction was that they usually only cared about having fun, and didn't think about the demon tribes in their territories at all. So Loopy Toad's countermeasure this time was to fight fire with fire and stop war with war. Of course, this war wasn't really a fight. It needed Immortal Zhenyuan to cooperate and put on a show. The red-haired young man stared at Dog 2 with a thoughtful expression, his heart filled with admiration. As expected of Senior Dog, it actually worried about the demon world. This was probably a big shot. Only a big shot would have the strength to maintain world peace. What Zhenyuan admired the most was Loopy Toad's attitude of educating people and teaching them. How great was this spirit to solve conflicts from the root. Immortal Zhenyuan sighed as he gazed into the distance. I hope these demons can understand Senior Dog's good intentions. While he was thinking this, Loopy Toad looked back at the peace consulate. After the envoys of the two territories left, Elder One also came out of the peace consulate and bowed to Dog 2 before he turned into a stream of light and left. Loopy Toad guessed that he had gone to deliver a message to demon god Scorpion Emperor of the East. Compared with the territory envoys of the other two territories, Elder One was very calm and unhurried as he walked. Although Elder One didn't react for a while when he heard that he wanted to annihilate the four territories, judging from his current behavior, Buttface felt that Elder One must have guessed something. This was actually a way out for the demon gods of the other three domains. It was also a life-saving straw for the eastern domain that had been isolated by the other three domains. Now he was standing on the side of a third party. Whether the four regions could unite or not depended on the decision of the four demon gods. However, according to Buttface's understanding, the two demon gods of the pro-war faction were people who wouldn't give up until they saw the coffin. He reckoned that they wouldn't admit defeat so easily. From Loopy Toad's point of view, this was actually a little idealistic, so it still needed to add fuel to the fire. When you make your move later, be careful. Very well, Senior. Zhenyuan nodded in agreement. Then, with Loopy Toad personally leading the way, one man and one dog flew in the direction of the Western Territories. They deliberately waited at the entrance of the peace consulate for a while before setting off, in order to make sure that Taoist Witch Demon and Taoist Bronze Turtle had delivered the message. When they arrived at the pass to the Western Territories, Loopy Toad saw an astonishing scene. A burly man with bull horns on his head was guarding the entrance with the Guan King blade in his hand. Behind this burly man were thousands of demonic beasts. Among them, there was no lack of demon kings from various tribes in the western region. All of them had gathered here in the shortest time possible. To be honest, Loopy Toad had never seen such an array of forces when it had been king. All the demon kings had gathered together, and a demon god was keeping watch. This demon chi was really too majestic. Loopy Toad was suddenly very glad that it had the golden light shield, otherwise it would have really been a little unsteady in this array of forces. That Taoist Witch Demon from before was standing next to the bullhorn man. Your Highness Venerable Ox, I've already received news that Ghost Emperor will arrive very soon to assist in the battle. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories frowned and looked very unruly. The Guan King blade in his hand glowed with silver light, and a powerful demonic aura gathered on its blade. The bullhorn necklace hanging around his neck was also of unusual origin. After hearing Taoist Witch Demon's words, Venerable Ox lifted his red cloak and bared his upper body to reveal his incomparably majestic muscles. I'm afraid Ghost Emperor won't need to come in person. Loopy Toad sneered at Venerable Ox's attitude, and it turned its head to ask, "What do you think?" "This junior already completely understands senior's thinking," said Immortal Jinyuan. Sometimes it really wasn't a good thing to be too confident in oneself. Many people thought that they already saw the whole world, but in fact, they were just frogs at the bottom of a well. Jinyuan had always felt that he had a deep understanding of this point. Before he had met Senior Dog, he had thought that Venerated Immortal was already the strongest realm, but later he realized that this wasn't the case at all. There was always someone better out there. No matter how high one's position was, one had to maintain a proper attitude at all times and maintain a sense of humility. Having no confidence and being too confident were both extremes. "So you were the ones who killed my horse face?" Venerable Ox of the Western Territories gripped the Guan King blade tightly, and a powerful current of air accompanied by a tyrannical demonic aura exhaled from his nose. Even the nose ring on his nose vibrated with this aura. This was a type of sound wave spell that could exert a powerful mental pressure through the vibration between his breath and the nose ring. Jinyuan sighed at this scene and snapped his fingers at the sound wave spell. Dog 2 saw a circle of golden ripples spread out from Jinyuan's hand and directly cancel out Venerable Ox of the Western Territories' sound wave spell. Not only that, this simple snap of his fingers actually stirred up a strong wind, causing the expressions of all the demons present to change dramatically. It was just a snap of his fingers. He actually had this kind of power. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories' eyes darkened, and he immediately soared into the air. He raised the Guan King blade and prepared to make his move, boundless demonic aura instantly condensing on the blade. At that moment, Jinyuan snapped his fingers a second time. All the demons present heard the sound of metal shattering. Venerable Ox of the Western Territories never expected that before he could slash down with his blade, all that was left of the Guan King blade in his hand was a stick. Still want to struggle? If Senior Dog personally made a move, this snap of his fingers would have already destroyed you in both body and soul. In the air, Jinyuan smiled at Venerable Ox of the Western Territories. "You know nothing about power at all." Chapter 595. The moment the Guan King blade shattered, Venerable Ox of the West broke out in a cold sweat as he realized that this wasn't an opponent he could touch. Jinyuan frowned as he stared at this scene. Since he had become a venerated immortal, apart from his grudge with his inner demon Wind Spirit, he had very few other fights. It could be said that apart from fighting Wind Spirit, he hadn't come into contact with anyone else in the last 100 years. The demon gods of the demon world, and of the 4 inner territories at that, should be the strongest existences apart from Demon Saint. But Jinyuan's first impression now was 2 words. So weak, 2 words. So weak. Thinking this, the red-haired young man suddenly looked at Dog 2 on the side, and his admiration for Loopy Toad deepened. In the end, this was Senior Dog, who repeatedly reminded him to hold back and not be too heavy-handed. Otherwise, given his normal strength, this venerable Ox of the West would have already died. All of a sudden, Immortal Jinyuan started to imagine why Loopy Toad hadn't made a move, but had instead chosen to summon him. It definitely wasn't that Senior Dog didn't want to make a move, and it definitely wasn't because it was bored or lazy. For a powerful dog like Senior Dog, if it wasn't careful and didn't control its strength, wouldn't destroying the demon world be a matter of minutes? Thus, Jinyuan felt that Senior Dog had a sense of duty to care for all living things in the world. What kind of spirit was this? It was moving. Thinking this, Jinyuan couldn't help looking at Loopy Toad, and felt that Senior Dog was growing taller and taller in his eyes. Too dazzling. A warm flush rose on Jinyuan's face, and his heart was filled with anticipation. He wondered when he would be able to cultivate to Senior Dog's level. In any case, at this stage, Jinyuan felt that it was fine as long as he followed Senior Dog. This seemed to be very helpful in improving his state of mind. On the other side, Venerable Ox of the West was very embarrassed. The main point wasn't that his Guan King blade had been broken. The main point was that his first move had been so easily neutralized by the other party. This already couldn't be said to have been killed before achieving victory, but to have been flushed down the toilet. Furthermore, it had been done in front of all the demons, which made Venerable Ox of the West feel utterly humiliated. After Jin Yuan taught Venerable Ox of the West a lesson, Loopy Toad just quietly gazed into the air and maintained its image as a senior expert. A few minutes later, it raised its head and pointed to a direction in the void. The others also looked over. Venerable Ox of the West and Taoist Witch Demon on the ground were overjoyed. They knew that reinforcements had arrived. But just as their heads turned a few centimeters away, Jin Yuan raised his left index finger and pressed down lightly. Venerated Ox of the West and Taoist Witch Demon instantly felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on their heads. Their entire bodies were buried into the ground, leaving only their heads exposed. Most importantly, this spell also had a restrictive effect, making it impossible for them to break free. Venerable Ox of the West was furious, but he didn't dare to speak at all. This pressure was too great. It gave him the illusion that if he said anything wrong, his neck would immediately be snapped. Right after the rider, the thousands of demons behind Venerable Ox of the West, including the Demon King, were also pressed into the ground one by Jin Yuan, with only their heads sticking out. What kind of scene was this? This dense mass of darkness? Buttface felt a chill in his heart. It would be great if someone with trypophobia was here. Senior, there are two auras approaching here. Immortal Jin Yuan smiled, his expression relaxed. Now that the main actors and supporting actors were almost all here, this scene should be very exciting. Since fighting was no longer fun, he might as well enjoy being an actor. Immortal Jin Yuan had always wanted to shoot a movie as a promotional video for Drought Star's migration, and now was a good opportunity to practice his acting skills. The most important thing was that he could learn from Senior Dog how to be a director. In the sky, the demon gods of the other two territories, Ghost Emperor of the South and Turtle Devil of the North, arrived one after another. Their strength was on par with Venerated Ox of the West. Jin Yuan could press each of them into the ground with a flip of his hand. When the two great demon gods arrived, they just happened to see Venerated Ox of the West and thousands of demon beasts of the West buried in the ground, with only their heads sticking out. Ghost Emperor of the South and Turtle Devil of the North stared blankly at the same time. What were they doing? Whack-a-mole? Seeing his capable subordinate Taoist Witch Demon buried in the ground, Ghost Emperor of the South was directly furious. He stared at Loopy Toad and Immortal Jin Yuan in the sky. How dare you? But before he could finish speaking, he felt the ground under his feet sink. In the next second, Ghost Emperor of the South directly sank into the ground. Loopy Toad couldn't help sighing in its heart. This was too tragic. It was a completely one-sided beating. Turtle Devil of the North was even more miserable than Ghost Emperor of the South. After Ghost Emperor of the South was buried into the ground, Turtle Devil of the North didn't even say a word. Furthermore, Jin Yuan had specially lined up the three demon gods in a row. It had to be said that this scene was really comical. Buried in the ground with a despairing expression, Venerated Ox of the West communicated telepathically. Why didn't you bring more people? Ghost Emperor of the South grit his teeth. I could have directly summoned my 10 million ghost generals. I didn't have to bring them with me at all. But who knew that I would be buried as soon as I arrived? Turtle Devil of the North sighed. In this situation, unless Demon Saint makes a move, this person's strength is too far below ours. At this point, all the demons were silent. Hearing this, Dog 2 smiled in his heart. In fact, Turtle Devil of the North had mentioned a key point, and that was to summon Demon Saint. Demon Saint generally didn't care about worldly affairs in the demon world, unless some demon beasts violated the rules and restrictions. Under normal circumstances, Demon Saint wouldn't easily show up and make a move. However, if they wanted Demon Saint to make a move, the demon gods of the 4 inner territories would have to pray together. Now that the 3 territories had deliberately joined forces to isolate the East Territory, whether or not Scorpion King of the East would come here was another matter, let alone accompany them in praying to summon Demon Saint. Ghost Emperor of the South said telepathically. This dog is too deranged, Venerated Ox of the West. What is this kind of big shot doing in the demon world? Turtle Devil of the North. I told you not to stir up trouble. Look, we're short of one person in this situation. If Scorpion King doesn't come, we'll all die. The 3 demon gods were now filled with regret. They knew Demon Saint's personality too well. The demon gods of the 4 inner regions were all chosen by Demon Sage, and used their great powers to inherit their power. Therefore, to Demon Sage, their existence was actually completely dispensable. If it wasn't for the demon gods of the 4 inner regions working together to pray, it would be impossible to summon Demon Sage. Dog 2 stared at this scene, flicked his tail, and said in a very cold and determined voice, "First, execute all those buried here." Chapter 596. Very well, Senior Dog. As always, Jin Yuan was very obedient and directly nodded in agreement. In fact, he knew very well in his heart that this was just a threat, and that there was no way he would actually make a move. But when he saw the thousands of demon beasts' faces turn pale with fright, Jin Yuan actually felt a little amused and couldn't help smiling. It turned out that teasing these little demon beasts was so interesting. There was something wrong with this smile, and Loopy Toad wondered if it had inadvertently triggered some strange hidden attribute in immortal Jin Yuan. Many years later, Loopy Toad would regret summoning Jin Yuan here to help it today. If it had known earlier, it would have been more frank and asked Little Master Ling to help it. Of course, all of this would happen in the future. Senior Dog, do you want to sit down? Chopping off the heads of 1,000 demons, this scene is spectacular. Immortal Jin Yuan stared at the 1,000 or so pale-faced heads below him as he spoke excitedly about something that sounded very scary. "All right," Loopy Toad replied. I'll prepare a chair for you, Senior." Immortal Jin Yuan nodded, and then didn't make any big movements. He just used his index finger to draw a magic array in the air, and then pushed it toward the sky. Whoosh! Dog 2 saw Jin Yuan blow lightly at the magic array, and it instantly released a golden mist. Loopy Toad guessed that Jin Yuan was most likely going to do something outrageous again. It realized that immortal Jin Yuan had a kind of obsessive-compulsive disorder when it came to casting spells, which was that they had to be gorgeous. Furthermore, this wasn't a spell from Huaxiao Nation. Looking at the structure of the golden array, most of the symbols inside were from the West. Since it's a chair for Senior, it has to be grand. Jin Yuan turned to look at Loopy Toad and smiled. Then he made a seal with one hand, and heaven and earth instantly shook. The thousands of demon beasts on the ground couldn't help shaking their heads under the pressure of the tremors. Loopy Toad saw that some of the demon beasts in the back row were already foaming at the mouth from the tremors. Loopy Toad. Then the golden magic circle carved in the void began to rotate like a disc, magnifying countless times. A passageway opened up in the magic circle, and many armored Western soldiers walked out. Immortal Jin Yuan. This is the grade 9, heroic spirit summoning spell I learned from Mixiao Nation. I only remembered it when I saw that Junior used the Ghost General summoning array earlier. Moreover, under my modifications, this spell is currently close to the 10th rank. Furthermore, it had incorporated a lot of Eastern construction concepts into it. Senior, look. As he spoke, Immortal Jin Yuan pointed at the entrance to the summoning array. Sure enough, apart from the Western soldiers, there were also a lot of ancient Huaxiao soldiers in gray armor. Immortal Jin Yuan. I fused these ancient Huaxiao soldiers into the spell after I modified it. The flaw of this technique is that you need to find the corresponding sacrifice to summon the heroic spirit. In order to integrate our Eastern culture into it, 100 years ago, I bought a large number of terracotta soldiers. Loopy Toad. All the demons. Immortal Jin Yuan smiled. Currently, the total number of Western and Eastern soldiers I can summon is exactly 100,000. 100,000? Loopy Toad was stunned. All of you come out. Jin Yuan controlled the heroic spirits that poured out of the heroic spirit summoning array in a steady stream. There were roughly 10,000 of them, and they lined up in square formations, which looked extremely spectacular. The most important thing was that each of the heroic spirits was actually at the soul formation stage. Ghost Emperor of the South, who was buried in the ground, paled when he saw this. He recalled how he had actually tried to use his ghost generals and ghost soldiers to fight back. Among the ghost soldiers and ghost generals he had summoned, only one was at the soul formation stage. But the heroic spirits that had appeared in front of him were actually all at the soul formation stage. The most frightening thing was that there were only 10,000 of them. According to that red-haired young man, he still had 90,000 in reserve. Ghost Emperor was instantly speechless at the huge difference in strength. They regarded grade 8 spells as the most precious treasures, but the other party could summon a grade 10 spell with a flick of his hand. Senior, wait a little longer, I'll build a chair for you right away. In the air, Immortal Jinyuan looked at the 10,000 soldiers he had summoned and said, Loopy Toad, all the demons, build a chair? Then, these tens of thousands of heroic spirits began to move. Everyone could see that on the vast land of the Western Regions Pass, the soldiers in the back row stepped on the shoulders and backs of the soldiers in the front row, stacking layer by layer, carrying out a human pyramid. They used their own bodies to connect and build. And in the end, they actually formed a huge throne. This was a heroic spirit throne built by heroic spirits. It had a high back and wide armrests, and it looked gorgeous and grand. Most importantly, it was majestic and had a domineering aura, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. Dog 2 suppressed the shock in its heart. Senior, please. Immortal Jinyuan raised his hand in a welcoming gesture. Then Dog 2 sat down at the top. To be honest, it wasn't very comfortable, but in the end it won in terms of momentum. Senior Dog, do you need to say something? I have a lighting technician among my heroic spirits. Jinyuan floated next to Dog 2 and smiled slightly. Lighting technician? Yes, lighting technician. After that, Jinyuan clapped his hands, and Dog 2 saw a coquettish young man in golden armor slowly walk out of the heroic spirit summoning array in the air. His hair was combed blonde and he wore earrings. With his arms crossed, this young man looked very unruly and insufferably arrogant. Then, the blonde young man strolled through the air to Loopy Toad's side. Loopy Toad then felt a figure descend on its back. Along with this figure was a cluster of lights which gathered on Dog 2's body from above, making Dog 2 feel like it had become the focal point in that moment. The only flaw was that the magic artifact used to gather the light was a little lacking in style. When Loopy Toad looked at it, it realized that it was actually a street lamp. Senior Dog, you don't know, but it cost me a lot to summon this lighting technician back then. Jinyuan stared at the blonde young man holding the street lamp and sighed deeply. To be honest, I didn't really want him back then, but after thinking about it, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have him as a flashlight. The key is that he looks gorgeous. He's shining gold all over. Loopy Toad looked up at the slightly yellow street lamp. But isn't this street lamp a little dark? Does Senior Dog think it's dark? That's fine, you can adjust it. Immortal Jinyuan snapped his fingers and directly said to the blonde young man. Gilgamesh, did you hear that? Senior Dog wants you to turn on the light a little brighter. Loopy Toad. Chapter 597. Passing through the layers of clouds to the top of the holy pillar, the demon saint calmly watched the movements of the mortal world with his scepter in hand. Behind demonic saint, an old man in a white Taoist robe approached. He looked at the lower realm and smiled. You're not going to make a move? The old man was the holy master of second-generation demon saint, and was inseparable from demon saint. His main duty was to assist demon saint in better managing the demon world, and also to supervise demon saint's succession as a supervisor. There were rumors in the outside world that the title of demon saint was hereditary, but that was not the case. When he heard the old man's question, second-generation demon saint shook his head. I've wanted to teach these juniors a lesson for a long time. It's naturally great that someone will do it on my behalf. Moreover, I could feel that they didn't really want to kill me. Now the only thing I'm curious about is where this dog came from. He looked at the old man beside him. Do you have any clues, sacred teacher? Not a single clue. The sage sovereign shook his head bluntly. I've already checked with the destiny sphere, but all I see is a blurry mosaic. Mosaic? Second-generation demon saint was stunned. The sage master nodded. This mosaic should have a direct connection with the dog's owner. The dog's owner had an unusual background. Perhaps he was not a human cultivator from Earth at all. It was very likely that he came from another galaxy. We can't detect the creatures from outside the Milky Way, but they are indeed very scary. When the first demon saint was in power, He once encountered a gorilla from outside the Milky Way. That gorilla accidentally passed through the spatial wall to the demon realm and almost tore down this sacred pillar. Second-generation demon saint was startled. Really? Why didn't I know about this? The sage master said. Of course you don't know. The history of the Milky Way's invasion is only recorded in the demon saint's holy palace. But you haven't seen any of these since you took the throne. Second-generation demon saint was silent for a moment before he said, Sage master, you should know that becoming demon saint wasn't my intention. But this is the will of the heavens. Sage sovereign said, I was the one who decided on the first-generation demonic saint's succession method. After that, it was up to the first-generation demonic saint to decide the succession method. That was how the first generation had gone through. Indeed, the method of succession might be a little strange. At this point, second-generation demon saint wanted to cry. It's more than just a little weird. The sage master shook his head. There's nothing you can do. If you want to retire, you'll have to wait for the next demon saint to appear. Otherwise, you will suffer the backlash of the holy pillar. I have already explained the specific consequences to you when you succeeded the throne. Second-generation demon saint was silent. In fact, he had a hunch that it wouldn't be long before the next demon saint appeared. Buttface sat on the throne, which was made up of the souls of the Western and Eastern soldiers. He looked down from a high vantage point. This throne was made up of tens of thousands of souls at the soul formation stage. Just the aura of this throne was enough to make people feel a sense of solemnity and fear. As these auras overlapped, the originally azure sky was covered in a layer of dusky clouds, instantly changing the color of the world. Gilgamesh adjusted the light to the maximum and focused it on Buttface's head. This scene was actually quite artistic, and Jin Yuan was very satisfied. Under his guidance over the years, Gilgamesh's lighting skills had become better and better. Almost there. At this time, Buttface suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. In the east, there were two more auras approaching. Scorpion King of the East and Elder One had arrived together. At this point, the actors were completely in place. Jin Yuan had thought of building this throne of martyrs earlier to stall for time, until Scorpion King showed up. The appearance of Scorpion King made the demon gods of the south, north, and west feel ashamed of their inferiority. They had joined hands to exclude the East territory previously in order to isolate it, which was currently the strongest of the four inner territories. This included framing the sky-swallowing Toad clan for hiding magic weapons of mass destruction, issuing a list of tariffs that were more than 100 times the price of the East territory, and raising trade barriers. This was all to suppress the East territory. They had thought that they were going to die today without a doubt, and had never expected to see Scorpion King and Elder One appear together. The pressure exerted by the throne formed by the souls of over 10,000 soul formation stage soldiers was simply too great, and it formed a natural restriction. A golden mist revolved around it, making it impossible for anyone to see what was in front of them. Even eye techniques were unable to see through it. Scorpion King and Elder One had no choice but to descend from the sky far away. Unable to fly anymore, they could only approach on foot. When they appeared at the pass to the West Territory, and saw this towering throne made of martyrs, Scorpion King of the East and Elder One almost instantly had the illusion that they had walked into a miracle. Your Highness, this is the place, Elder One said with difficulty to the young man in a purple and gold Taoist robe next to him. At that moment, even opening his mouth to speak, Elder One felt the greatest pressure. The young man standing beside him had a head of grayish-white long hair, and there was an ordinary-looking hairpin in his bun. This was a divine artifact, refined from the young man's stinger. As they approached, they felt their footsteps grow heavier. I sensed the auras of venerated ox, ghost emperor and turtle devil nearby. Apart from them, there are also the auras of many other demon beasts. But Scorpion King looked around. Where are they? Elder One, Scorpion King, please raise your foot. The one you're stepping on is them. Scorpion King. Because of the golden mist generated by the martyr's throne swirling around them, Scorpion King didn't notice what was under his feet for a moment. When he heard Elder One's reminder, he looked down and was completely shocked. The ground under his feet was actually full of demon beasts, the demon kings of the West Territory, including the demon gods of the 3 territories, were all buried in the ground, with only their heads sticking out. The young man in purple sucked in a cold breath. F***K. Was this a game of whack-a-mole? The young man raised his foot just in time to see Turtle Devil under his foot. Turtle Devil's head had already been stomped back into its shell, and when it poked its head out again, there was still a shoe print on its face. Scorpion King was instantly in a good mood. He had been bullied in the East Territory for several months. This foot, it was really too comfortable to step on. He vented his anger. The young man was thinking about whether to step on other people's faces a few more times, but before he could do so, he felt pressure on his shoulder. You two go down as well, Xinyuan attacked again. Then, Scorpion King and Elder One were horrified to find that their bodies were sinking. The 2 of them were accurately buried next to venerated Ox of the West Territory. At this point, all the demon gods of the 4 inner territories had gathered, and without exception, they were all buried. Chapter 598. The moment his body sank into the ground, Scorpion King actually saw the ending of his demon life in his mind. So, was he going to die? When he came back to his senses, Scorpion King was deeply aware of how terrifying the enemy in front of him was. He couldn't resist this power at all. And the gap between their strength was like that between the firmament and an ant. Furthermore, perhaps they weren't even as good as ants. They were just like a pile of rice fields. Scorpion King wasn't the only one who felt this way. All the demon beasts buried in the ground saw the ending of their demon lives. Were they going to die just like this? Most creatures, not just humans, often only learn to cherish something after they lost it. There were many things in this, and life was one of them. War brought glory and pleasure to the demon gods, the rulers of the demon territory, but the pain was still deeply imprinted on the bodies of the demon people. So in the moment when they thought they were going to die when they were buried in the ground, the first thing the demon kings and demon beasts in the rear thought about was peace. The demon world hadn't been peaceful for nearly 100 years, and there were conflicts everywhere. Tribes could even fight over a bit of cultivation resources. Even earlier, all the resources in the demon world had been shared. In that moment, the demon kings and the demon beasts under their command were all thinking about one question. What was it that made them become more and more selfish? If they had a chance to start over, they would want peace and would never help the evildoer. At the same time, the demon gods of the 4 territories were also pondering the same question. If they had united earlier, the 4 demon gods of the inner territories would have worked together to pray and summon Demon Saint to descend, and they wouldn't have ended up like this. Peace. That was what they needed. This torture that came from the depths of their souls seemed to go on for a very, very long time, but in fact only lasted for a few short seconds. This was also Xinyuan's method. This spell to bury the demon gods and demon kings and demon beasts in the ground was called the burial spell. It was originally a secret technique of some ancient cultivation sect, and it was full of blood and violence. It could be used anywhere there was soil and sand. It used the power of the earth to bind people, and then bit by bit, it would entangle them to death. But this burial spell was an improved version of Xinyuan's. It wasn't as brutal as the original, and was used purely as a control spell. Together with the soul returning lantern, a spiritual interrogation spell, the 2 of them were like a golden partner. This soul returning lantern is a 10th grade spell that I created myself. It will make people think from the bottom of their hearts. Where did I come from? Where did I die? Why did I appear in this world? Does the universe have an end? Is there a length of time? Was the flood dragon bald? How do you pronounce Honghu? These are all problems. Loopy Toad suddenly felt that Xinyuan was really a genius. At the very least, apart from Little Masterling, no one he had ever met had a better understanding of cultivation than Xinyuan. Apart from luck, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that Xinyuan's talent was also a big part of the reason he was able to reach venerated immortal level. Looking at the demon gods and demon beasts below, all of them came back to their senses from the mental interrogation spell of the soul returning lantern. Loopy Toad opened its mouth slowly. Any last words? Do you have any last words? Any last words? Any last words, Loopy Toad? Holy shit. Where did this echo come from? Wasn't this evil sword God's attribute? Loopy Toad felt that this time, it really was a little like a villain. Immortal Genuine. Oh, that's right. I forgot to tell Senior Dog that the Throne of Martyrs has its own echo-spreading effect. Loopy Toad was alarmed. A built-in echo-spreading effect? Now that it's come to this, we only have ourselves to blame, and I don't want to repeat it. If this Senior Dog is willing to give us a chance, no matter what the final outcome is, even if our bodies and souls are destroyed, we have no complaints. When Venerable Ox of the West said this, the faces of the demon gods of the 4 territories darkened. Loopy Toad. What else do you have to fight me with? Demon Saint. Venerable Ox of the West said resolutely. As long as Senior is willing to release us, we can summon Demon Saint. Loopy Toad rubbed its head with one paw. I almost forgot about this, Junior. Above the holy pillar. Demon Saint. You want to use Demon Saint to deal with me? Loopy Toad continued to play along with the plot with a contemptuous look in its eyes as it snorted coldly. Why would I need to personally deal with Demon Saint? Genuine released them. Immortal Genuine had a conflicted expression on his face. Senior Dog, is this okay? It took me a lot of effort to trap them. All the demons. This is to make them despair completely. Dog 2 pretended to be profound as it said, actually, I'm a little tired after being in the demon world for so long. If this Demon Saint of the demon realm can amuse me, I can indeed let these rude juniors go. Actually, I've never been one to advocate war, and prefer peaceful days. If it wasn't for the envoys in the peace consulate who angered me, I wouldn't have made a move today. After saying this, the fur on Loopy Toad's back bristled slightly. It had been provoked by its own words. Genuine sighed. Senior Dog is so kind. Taoist Witch Demon. Buried in the ground, the corners of Taoist Witch Demon's mouth couldn't help twitching. Why did he remember that it was this green-furred dog who had made the first move back then? It had broken through the window with a flying kick, which had directly kicked Lord Horseface senseless. This plot wasn't right. Genuine then snapped his fingers and untied all the demons. He looked down at the 4 demon gods. I've never fought Demon Saint before, but since Senior Dog is here this time, as a junior, I should indeed put on a good show. When you convey your will to Demon Saint, please tell him not to hold back, otherwise there's no way he can defeat me. All the demons sweated. In the face of absolute power, they had no way to refute. At that moment, Ghost Emperor couldn't help asking, this red-haired senior, may this junior ask you a question? He had mustered up the courage to ask this question. Go ahead, said Immortal Genuine. May I ask Senior's Taoist name? My Taoist name? In front of Senior Dog, no Taoist name is worth mentioning. The red-haired young man narrowed his eyes and smiled slightly. My Taoist name is Genuine. Genuine. All the demons' jaws dropped when they heard this, and even second-generation Demon Saint on the Holy Pillar had a stunned expression on his face. It was actually him. Chapter 599. At that moment, all the demons broke out in a cold sweat like a waterfall that couldn't be stopped. Immortal Genuine, the legendary human cultivator, known as the only venerated immortal of all human cultivators in the world, was actually standing right in front of them, and was actually willing to be a hired thug for an unidentified green-furred dog. Atop the Holy Pillar, Sage Master had a surprised expression on his face. I've checked this dog over and over, and it's just a second-class spirit beast. Why does this legendary human cultivator, Immortal Genuine, address it as Senior Dog? This Sage Master was very powerful and proficient in perception and divination spells. He was very confident in his perception ability, which could be seen from how he had seen a mosaic when he had been tracking Wang Ling earlier. In the end, this Sage Master still didn't know the dog's owner's specific identity. But if it was an ordinary person, he probably wouldn't even be able to track down the mosaic. Sage Master sucked in a breath. Is this dog really very strong? Is my perception wrong? The point was that he had never failed in his perception before. Scepter in hand, second-generation Demon Saint was also dazed. A moment later, he turned his head to look at Sage Master and said, "Hen." Sage Master. It could only be said that this dog wasn't ordinary. Perhaps it really wasn't as simple as they thought, otherwise there was no way to explain the situation in front of them. Before knowing Jinyuan's true identity, they had thought that this cultivator was only willing to lower himself to be a hired thug for the sake of the dog's owner's face. But after knowing his true identity, things were different. Because Jinyuan's Taoist name was so resounding that it wasn't just in the human world, but also in the demon world. How could such a legendary figure with his own untamed nature easily become someone's hired thug? Moreover, judging from the attitude of this legendary cultivator toward the dog, it could be said that he was very respectful. He practically regarded the dog as his biological father. What are you going to do now?" Sage Master asked as he stroked his white beard. As Demon Saint's assistant, Sage Master didn't have the right to obstruct or interfere with Demon Saint's judgment. This was forbidden, and was also a prohibition on the Holy Pillar. This prohibition was also a rule set by the first-generation Demon Saint when he prayed to the sacred pillar, so as to prevent the subsequent Demon Saints from being disturbed by their bosom friends when they led the demon world. Second-generation Demon Saint. Let's go with their script first. In fact, I also want to see how strong this legendary human cultivator is. I just need to be a little more careful. Yes. Sage Master nodded. Actually, I think the dog's owner's identity might be even more extraordinary. Thinking of those dead fish eyes which had terrified him, second-generation Demon Saint got goosebumps all over. I'd rather believe that they were aliens from beyond the Milky Way. The Sage Master. Later, we can actually study the outer Milky Way. In the past, the first-generation Demon Saint had actually done related scientific and educational films. Moreover, this educational film is based on the incident of the extraterrestrial gorilla that almost tore down the Holy Pillar. Second-generation Demon Saint was stunned. There's a science and education film? Sage Master. It's in the Sutra Depository. I'll find it later. It's called You from the Planet of the Apes. Second-generation Demon Saint. On the other side, Dog 2 and Jinyuan quietly waited for the 4 demon gods to summon Demon Saint. The 4 demon gods held hands as they formed a circle and closed their eyes to pray. This was a historic scene, and all the demons present felt that it could be recorded in the history of the demon world. In the last 100 years, there had been endless disputes in the inner territory of the demon world. It had already been 700 or 800 years since the last time the 4 demon gods had sat down together and calmly negotiated. Now they were actually working hand in hand to summon Demon Saint. Dozens of seconds later, the clouds in the sky split open, and a brilliant blue light fell from the sky. All the demons present knelt down in reverence and kowtowed one after another. Demon Saint had really responded. Dog 2 and Jinyuan stared at this blue beam of light, and in the center of which a blurry figure slowly descended. Then, the blue beam of light disappeared and turned into a mist that spread out to envelop the figure. Just a virtual body? Jinyuan, dressed in fiery red Taoist robes the color of maple leaves, rose into the air and stared at Demon Saint's virtual body. Jinyuan was a little displeased that it wasn't Demon Saint's real body that had descended. But after all, this was just an act, and there was no need to be so serious. In fact, it wasn't that Jinyuan didn't understand. Since Demon Saint had never shown his face before, he had to maintain a sense of mystery. Jinyuan had always felt that this was a bad habit that had been infected by the damn big head pervert in some comprehensive entertainment news program. Sighing in his heart, Jinyuan stood with his hands behind his back. A red light rose from under his feet and gave off an even more intimidating light. Dog 2 saw a tremendous amount of spirit power coalesce into a tall virtual figure behind Jinyuan. This was a venerated immortal's Dharma image. All the demons were horrified. The aura of Demon Saint's virtual body collided with that of the venerated immortal's Dharma image, and it was really too terrifying. This wasn't a direct showdown between the two of them, but a battle between a virtual body and a Dharma image. This was because whether the virtual body or the Dharma image was injured, the injuries would ultimately be reflected back on the real body. The showdown was about to begin. Let me see what a legendary cultivator is capable of. Above the holy pillar, Demon Saint used his scepter to control the virtual body as he narrowed his eyes at immortal Jinyuan. The next moment he slammed his scepter into the ground, and the virtual body beneath him instantly shone with a demonic light as it exuded a kind of withering power, which affected the entire demon world. All the vegetation in the demon world withered. The range of this power was very wide. It was just an aura, but it caused everything within 10,000 li to wither, and it was as if the whole world had lost its color. Was this the power of Demon Saint? All the demons turned pale with fright. Apart from demon gods, none of the demon kings or demon beasts in the domain had ever personally experienced the power of Demon Saint. Withered trees come to life. Jinyuan let out a low cry, and then a pure and holy golden light shot out of his hand, shining in all directions like a rising sun. This wasn't a spell, but a kind of power that could be used at will to awaken and revive the withered vegetation. All the demons stared at the vegetation on the ground. When the two forces collided, the vegetation withered and revived and then withered again, and then revived again. Dog 2 could tell that the two of them were using their respective virtual bodies and Dharma images to arm wrestle. This was a relatively peaceful method. If they directly clashed with auras, the entire demon world would suffer. It was just that the vegetation looked a little pitiful. Interesting. Demon Saint's interest was suddenly piqued by this collision. He slammed his scepter into the ground again to increase his strength. Very quickly, Jinyuan felt the withered power emanating from the virtual body increase. This wasn't a simple increase, but Demon Saint had added a heavenly Tao to the withered power, using the aura of heavenly Tao to fuel it. Jinyuan raised an eyebrow, and then controlled the Dharma image to also activate the power of heavenly Tao. How many heavenly Tao do you have? At that moment, Demon Saint's voice came from the virtual body. He felt that Jinyuan had no more than 3 at most. Immortal Jinyuan, guess. I'm too lazy to guess, I'll just test you. The virtual body laughed, and then roared. Holy Pillar, please grant me power. As soon as it said that, the withered power instantly intensified once again. In a flash, the number of heavenly Tao mixed in with the withered power increased from 1 to 6. Chapter 600. The Holy Pillar was the backbone of the entire demon world's will. The scepter in Demon Saint's hand was formed from the Holy Pillar, and the will of a world was formed from at least 10 heavenly Tao. So even if Demon Saint hadn't reached venerated immortal level, as long as it had the power of the demon world's will, it wouldn't necessarily be weaker than Jinyuan. Loopy Toad had already deduced this from the very beginning, but it had never expected Demon Saint to so decisively borrow the power of the Holy Pillar to drive the will of the demon world. Loopy Toad had a vague feeling that something wasn't right. This was an arm wrestling show, and the stars were Jinyuan and Demon Saint, but Loopy Toad realized that it was the real test. With the addition of the power of 6 heavenly Tao, Demon Saint's power to wither increased once again. This time, it wasn't just vegetation that was affected. Other living creatures were also affected, and some demon beasts with low realms had already fainted from this fluctuation. The demon kings of the various tribes felt as if their throats had been choked by fish bones, and even their breathing became rapid. This power was so terrifying that the expressions of the 4 demon gods changed. Although they didn't feel as if their throats had been choked by fish bones like the demon kings, they still felt as if a heavy burden had been placed on their shoulders. It was really too heavy. Was this Demon Saint's power? The demon gods of the 4 territories stared at the sky. Even heaven and earth were stained with a thick layer of ink. Under the influence of Demon Saint's power, all living things were withering. Jinyuan frowned but wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he closed his eyes and felt the pressure of this will. He had never fought Demon Saint before, and this was a rare and precious experience for Jinyuan. He had to admit that Demon Saint was indeed very powerful, but Jinyuan felt that this level of shock was still far from enough compared to what Senior Dog had done on Drought Star back then. Similarly, whoever had a stronger will would be the victor. Loopy Toad had thought that Jinyuan would ask it for help, but he didn't. It saw immortal Jinyuan hovering in the sky. The next moment he opened his eyes, and his maple red Taoist robes fluttered in the absence of any wind. In that moment, The Dharma image behind him began to multiply and emit an even more devastating light than before. Demon Saint's power to wither had been suppressed. You added 6? Looking at Demon Saint's virtual body, Jinyuan narrowed his eyes and smiled. I've also added 6, and they're the type that doesn't bring in external help. The number of heavenly Tao you have isn't normal. Demon Saint stared closely at Jinyuan. In fact, even Loopy Toad was startled. In its memory, Jinyuan didn't have this many heavenly Tao. The last time on Drought Star, it remembered that little Masterling had sensed that Jinyuan only had 3 heavenly Tao. How long had it been? Why did he suddenly have so many more? The heavenly Tao isn't laying eggs. It's not something that can be born at will. This is all thanks to Senior Dog, Jinyuan replied. Loopy Toad. Jinyuan. After Senior Dog left the last time, I repaired Drought Star on my own. However, I never expected that repairing the planet would cause Drought Star to develop feelings for me and allow me to obtain Drought Star's planet consciousness. Loopy Toad. Demon Saint. All the demons. There was such a thing? The virtual body of the Demon Saint asked. Did you find this planet by yourself? Jinyuan nodded. That's right. I once roamed the Milky Way for 1,000 years, and in the end, I found Drought Star less than 1/10 of the way outside the Milky Way. This must be fate. I didn't think that Drought Star and I would get our marriage certificate so soon. Demon Saint. Get married? Jinyuan. This is a popular saying in the modern cultivation world. It means that you have obtained the approval of some kind of will. Loopy Toad and all the demons. What F*** King marriage certificate? For a very long time, Demon Saint was silent and speechless, because there were times when it was really painful to admit the gap between people. Although he had been forced to inherit second-generation Demon Saint back then, it had taken him nearly 1,000 years to obtain the Holy Pillar's full approval. How much suffering and how many tears had he shed? It was like drawing a gold card in a game. After filling up his wallet and drawing 10 times in a row, he didn't get a single gold card. This was simply a scam. So compared with immortal Jinyuan, who had used the system's free lottery draw to draw a gold card, Demon Saint felt like an unlucky kid who couldn't become stronger even after spending money. Now that Demon Saint thought of this, his heart instantly felt stifled for a brief moment. The will to wither disappeared. Second-generation Demon Saint knelt at the top of the Holy Pillar, with an extremely resentful expression. Sage Master was alarmed. Second generation. You have to pull yourself together, second generation. Demon Saint's power to wither had disappeared? Jinyuan looked at the sky strangely. Unfortunately, Demon Saint's virtual body was too indistinct and he couldn't see its expression at all, nor did he know what on earth had happened. What's going on? The demons below were puzzled. It probably paused midway. Demon Saint's virtual body is still there and hasn't directly disappeared. The battle isn't over yet, said Ghost Emperor. Loopy Toad was just about to ask about Drought Star's will, when Jinyuan turned to look at it and smiled. Sure enough, nothing can be hidden from Senior Dog's eyes. Loopy Toad. Senior said that you could tell from the beginning that I had already inherited Drought Star's will, right? Otherwise, Senior Dog wouldn't have trusted me so much and sent me to fight Demon Saint. I deliberately hid it from Senior Dog before, but I never expected it to be so powerful. Loopy Toad was silent. The problem was that this really didn't have anything to do with it. Apart from Jinyuan's own luck, it had more to do with his talent to be able to inherit the will of a planet. It was too rare to gain the recognition of a planet's will. The difficulty level was very high. Thus, Loopy Toad felt extremely ashamed in its heart. This was indeed a man to be envious of. Roughly 2 minutes later, Demon Saint's power to wither, which was mixed with 7 heavenly Tao, revived once again. Cough cough. I'm very sorry. Second-generation Demon Saint's virtual body said slowly. I was too curious just now, so I did a little research on the will of a planet. Jinyuan couldn't help laughing. I didn't expect Demon Saint to be such a studious person. Second-generation Demon Saint. There's always been very little information on inheriting a planet's will. But Your Excellency was able to move the planet by repairing it and gaining its recognition. This is indeed the first time I've heard of this method. I was just lucky. Maybe Demon Saint can give it a try. Immortal Jin Yuan said modestly as he looked at Demon Saint's virtual body. Now can we continue arm wrestling? To everyone's surprise, Demon Saint actually refused. No, let's both stop. Jin Yuan. Since Your Excellency has already inherited the will of a planet, there's no point in continuing arm wrestling. Demon Saint's virtual body said. If Your Excellency doesn't mind, I'd like to invite Your Excellency and Senior Dog to my Demon Saint's holy palace on the Holy Pillar. We can discuss some issues together. Jin Yuan. Is it related to repairing the planet? No, it's just some issues related to cultivation. Second generation Demon Saint waved his hand and said, I'm not good at repairing planets, but when it comes to repairing, I was actually best at repairing cars when I was younger. There are cars with big headlights, and there are cars with small headlights. There are cars with soft horns, and there are cars with loud horns. I've repaired all kinds of cars. Sports cars, trucks, tanks, aircraft carriers. If Your Excellency is interested in repairing cars, we can discuss it together. Chapter 601. Preface. This chapter was written on May 7, 2018, on the way to Guyuan in the Ningxia Hui Autonomous Region for a gathering of writers from the Volunteer Literature Network of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan were dazed when they heard this indecent conversation from Demon Saint's virtual body telepathically. Could it be that this guy was also indecent? Loopy Toad did its best to keep calm. Demon Saint's tall and mysterious image had been completely destroyed in its mind. Loopy Toad remembered that when it was very young, it had idolized second-generation Demon Saint for a time, and had collected a lot of different figurines of him in the clan. No one had ever seen Demon Saint's true appearance, so these figurines were all different. They had all been made by master figurines in the demon world. Loopy Toad still remembered that some of them were rare collectibles. They had been sculpted by the famous figurine master Artoria, using the Sword of Victory. Second-generation Demon Saint continued telepathically through the virtual body. I've already ordered Sage Master to prepare a banquet. Both of you can rest assured that this isn't a hungmen banquet. Thanks to Senior Dog and Immortal Jin Yuan's help this time, the turmoil in the 4 inner territories was quelled, and the 4 demon gods were united against a common enemy. I actually can't thank you enough. Jin Yuan laughed in his heart. You could actually tell that it was an act? If I couldn't even tell that, I could directly retire. When Demon Saint retires, he has a lot of pension funds. Second-generation Demon Saint said meaningfully. If Immortal Jin Yuan had really made a move, we wouldn't have used the power of our individual willpower to arm wrestle just now. If we had really fought, the entire demon world would have been destroyed. Also, Senior Dog hasn't made a move from beginning to end, presumably because of the bigger picture. You're quite honest. Immortal Jin Yuan nodded. If Senior Dog had made a move, you would have died with a casual level 12 spell. Loopy Toad. So this only highlights the need for our discussion. I hope both Senior Dog and Immortal Jin Yuan can come. This isn't just a matter of life and death for the demon world. It also has a lot to do with the human cultivation world. Second-generation Demon Saint smiled bitterly and said telepathically, actually, Senior Dog and Immortal should have already sensed that the human cultivation world is going to be plunged into a catastrophe. The fact that Immortal didn't hesitate to spend 1,000 years looking for Drought Star is the best evidence. Saying this, Immortal Jin Yuan's expression turned serious. What do you know? Second-generation Demon Saint kept them in suspense. I'll have to wait for Senior Dog and the Immortal to come to the Holy Palace to explain this in detail. Loopy Toad hadn't expected Demon Saint to actually invite it to Demon Saint's Holy Palace. In the past, this was a place that Buttface didn't even dare to think about. He didn't have any chance to set foot in it. Maybe it would be a good idea to visit it? Furthermore, Loopy Toad was also very curious about Demon Saint's succession pattern. Maybe it could get some clues through this exchange. After a moment of silence, Loopy Toad nodded. We can go take a look. Jin Yuan. Since Senior Dog has already decided, of course I'll keep you company. Second generation demon saint was overjoyed. Then I'll await your arrival. However, I need to make one thing clear. Due to the restriction of the Holy Pillar's power, I am unable to personally welcome the two of you. I need Senior Dog and the Immortal to go to the bottom of the Holy Pillar together. When the time comes, there will be a Saint Master from the Holy Palace to receive you. Jinyuan was startled. Don't you have an immortal ladder? So low. There's only stairs. Furthermore, the last person who used stairs to reach the top took 300 years. It was really too tragic. Furthermore, he didn't have any supplies in between. He climbed until he was exhausted and almost died inside. As he said this, Jinyuan thought that second-generation demon saint sounded like he was about to cry. Jinyuan. Why is demon saint so clear about this? Second-generation demon saint. Because that person was me. After demon saint said this, the air was quiet again as he withdrew his virtual body and the power of withering. All the demons present were stunned. The duel had actually ended just like that. And it seemed to be a draw? Let's go. Loopy Toad was silent for a moment before it spoke to Jinyuan. Very well, Senior. Jinyuan nodded in agreement and immediately withdrew his Dharma image. The dazzling golden light immediately dissipated along with the Dharma image. After that, Immortal Jinyuan flicked his finger, and the heroic spirit throne changed. After receiving instructions, some of the heroic spirits in front of Loopy Toad started to rearrange themselves, and a long staircase actually extended from the top all the way to the ground. Jinyuan smiled slightly, revealing his canine teeth. Senior Dog this way. Loopy Toad. Above the Holy Pillar, second-generation demon saint heaved a long sigh. Sage Master stared at him. I never thought that human cultivators would be willing to cooperate with our demon world. The misunderstanding between the human world and the demon world over the years has been too deep. Second-generation demon saint nodded. I originally thought that this was a dead end. But after exchanging blows just now, I realized that Immortal Jinyuan is very strong, plus that Senior Dog, whose realm is unfathomable, and its mysterious owner. If we can join hands, we can revive this dead end. The demon world isn't like Earth. The demon star is in the Milky Way. Relying on the gate between worlds to link the human and demon worlds, I actually thought that the human world and the demon world might be able to develop peacefully, but I never expected it to come to this point today. Having said that, second-generation demon saint had also seen how Loopy Toad and Immortal Jinyuan had helped to bring the 4 territories together today. On this point alone, he felt that the relationship between the human world and the demon world hadn't reached an irreparable point. So as long as they were willing to work together, they would definitely be able to overcome this difficulty. Demon Saint continued. Although the monster that fell out of the space fissure was just a corpse, if it had been alive, I definitely wouldn't have been able to deal with it on my own. If the strong of our 2 worlds join hands, there's still a chance. Sage Master sighed. It seems that you already have a plan. Then I have nothing to say. But I never thought that you would actually have the leisure to worry about world affairs. Although I can't wait for third-generation Demon Saint to appear as soon as possible, I have to at least accomplish something that will be recorded in the history of the demon world during my term of office. How does the saying go? How do you become a successful demon? Second-generation Demon Saint thought for a bit before saying, 5 years without turning into a box, 10 years patrolling the mountains like a small drill, 100 years at the peak of a demon's life, even if you aren't a demon god king, living an ignoble life for 1,000 years without going to the wall, leaving behind merits and fame. If one day I die of old age, my portrait will still be hung on the wall, and 10,000 demons will line up to offer incense. Good poem, Sage Master was startled. I never thought you would have this kind of talent. Before I became Demon Saint back then, I was just an allegro singer. Second-generation Demon Saint sighed. If it wasn't for my good luck, I probably wouldn't even be a small drill now. So at least during my term of office, I want to make big news. And then retire. Chapter 602. Preface. This chapter was written on the way to visit the Fudan University volunteer postgraduate teaching team at Wangmin Middle School in Shiji County, Guyuan City. The Holy Pillar was located in the center of the four territories. When Lupi Toad asked Elder One to lead the way, the demon gods of the four territories were blank. In fact, they all had the vague feeling that this senior dog might have an unusual relationship with Elder One. It was just that no one dared ask. Why do I feel that you're so reluctant? Jin Yuan folded his arms and stared at the four demon gods. No, it's just that. The instant his gaze fell on them, the four demon gods felt a chill run down their spines. This was a human cultivator who could rival Demon Saint. It would be effortless for him to wipe them out if he wanted to. Furthermore, Demon Saint had now kindly invited them to the Holy Palace above the Holy Pillar. This wasn't treatment that ordinary human cultivators could enjoy. After all, even they had never been to the Holy Palace above the Holy Pillar. Back when second-generation Demon Saint had appointed him as a demon god, all the legacies had been carried out at the foot of the Holy Pillar, and no one had ever gone up. Among the demon gods of past generations, the only one who had climbed the Holy Pillar to see the Holy Palace with his own eyes was Chief Jiang of the first generation of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan. So when Lupi Toad personally asked Elder One to lead the way, the demon gods of the four territories were pondering this. They wondered if this action had something to do with the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan where Elder One was. After all, this senior dog's strength was even more unfathomable than immortal Jin Yuan's. Such a mysterious senior dog's every move and every word might have a hidden meaning. For the demon gods of the four territories who had been constantly trying to figure out the meaning of Demon Saint's edict all these years, it could be said that they were especially sensitive to the decisions and words of this great senior. Ghost Emperor of the South smiled. It's like this, senior dog, Senior Jin Yuan. Under normal circumstances, only the demon gods of the four territories are qualified to approach the foot of the Holy Pillar. Anyone below that, whether it's a territory envoys or demon kings, can't get close, unless they're the joint ambassadors of the four territories. Can't you demon gods of the four territories just make the decision? Jin Yuan. Also, can you not smile when you speak? When you smile, you look like you're crying. Ghost Emperor. Hearing immortal Jin Yuan's words, Elder One was overwhelmed by the favor. The four territories joint ambassador requires the demons of the four territories to vote publicly online. There has never been a case where a demon god has personally appointed someone. The four realms demon gods hurriedly nodded like chicks pecking at rice. If I say so, then so be it. At that moment Lupi Toad said, if anyone dares to object, come out and fight. All the demons instinctively took a step back. The Yao gods of the four regions spoke in unison. Next, we will make an official announcement. Elder One of the Sky-Swallowing Toad clan will serve as the Joint Secretary General of the Four Territories Peace Consulate. Elder One. All the demons. Watching Elder One lead Senior Dog, and immortal Jin Yuan away in the direction of the Holy Pillar, the demon gods of the four territories all felt relieved. They had more or less looked down on human cultivators before, but Jin Yuan had taught them a lesson this time. When a truly powerful human cultivator stood in front of them, they felt like they had to consider every breath they took. And the most important thing was that this was the demon world. In a situation where there was no spirit chi at all, he was actually this strong. If there was a more suitable environment for him to display his skills, he would definitely be even more terrifying. The demon gods of the four territories communicated telepathically with each other. I wonder why Demon Saint has invited this senior dog and senior immortal Jin Yuan. Demon Saint actually prepared a banquet. This probably isn't a simple matter. But with such a strong human cultivator and this mysterious senior dog, it would be best if they could be friends with the demon world. It would be too scary if they were enemies. Ghost Emperor said. By the way, is it really okay for us to directly appoint Elder One? Turtle Demon asked. It's no use having an opinion. Although this is unprecedented, it doesn't mean it can't be. An Elder One deserves this special honor. At that moment, Scorpion King slowly said telepathically, if Elder One hadn't convinced me this time, I wouldn't have come at all. In fact, I've always suspected that this senior dog was deliberately stalling for time before Elder One and I arrived. Scorpion King. Are you saying that this senior dog has already set everything up for the purpose of bringing our 4 territories back to friendly terms? It's possible. The Yao gods of the 4 regions recalled everything that had happened before, and felt a sense of dread when they thought about it. Was this the style of an expert, controlling all the arrangements in the palm of his hand? As expected of Senior Dog, previously, the demon gods of the 4 territories had actually wondered if Senior Dog wasn't that powerful, but now it seemed that they had no right to doubt it at all. Well, Your Excellency demon gods, let me interrupt. At that moment, Ghost Emperor's territory envoy, Taoist Witch Demon, suddenly spoke. Ghost Emperor. What is it? According to the comprehensive information received by the other territory envoys, the official mailboxes of the 4 territories have just received a lot of complaints and reports from the flower clans and tree clans. Currently, there are hundreds of thousands of them. Reports? Yes. Taoist Witch Demon nodded. Because Lord Demon Saint and Immortal Jinyuan were wrestling earlier, the power of withering and the power of recovery shifted back and forth, causing the plant system demons to be implicated. The 4 demon gods. Clan leader Lu Qi of the Forest Fairy clan said that after he felt himself withering, he thought his lifespan was over, so he lay down in a coffin that had been prepared beforehand. In the end, who knew that the power of recovery would descend and pull at the power of withering? And then the whole clan watched as clan leader Lu Qi sat up in the coffin. Also, apart from this matter, Lord Venerable Ox has to deal with the matter regarding Lord Horseface. Because he violated the Peace Consulate's rules, he was punished by Demon Saint and turned into a pile of demon sand. Horseface died too miserably. Venerable Ox's nose turned sour. Then what about his demon sand? It was still in the Peace Consulate before, but I sent a little ghost to take a look, Taoist Witch Demon said. It might have been because Lord Demon Saint and Senior Immortal Jinyuan's auras clashed so fiercely that Lord Horseface's ashes were blown away. Venerable Ox's expression was very pained. My girl. She's actually gone. The other demon gods. On the other side, with Elder One leading the way, 2 people and 1 dog turned into 3 streams of light as they swiftly approached the holy pillar. In the distance, Loopy Toad saw an ancient bronze pillar that seemed to prop up the sky appear on the horizon in the distance, like a sea-stabilizing divine needle. Is this the holy pillar? For some reason, Loopy Toad suddenly felt inexplicably excited as it stared at the pillar. Ah! How I want to pee on the holy pillar. Chapter 603. Today, I visited Fudan University's postgraduate teaching team at Wangmin Middle School and Sanha Middle School. They are both young, almost the same age as me, but they have already taken on the responsibility of being teachers. Teaching in the village, the difficulties they have to overcome are much greater than we imagined. Backward key and equipment, differences in education, regional and cultural differences, differences in water and soil. They have all overcome them. This is a group of tough people. P.S. Wangmin Middle School's environment is even more backward than Sanha Middle School. The teaching team leader, Gung Xinyu, is an English teacher, and there are 2 men, Li Lianshua and Yang Jianwei. Because the environment is too difficult, the 3 men were arranged to come here to teach. They have to fetch their own water and go down the mountain to take a bath in the city. However, the most annoying thing is that the bus down the mountain is continuous. There is a bus at 6 o'clock a.m., 6:10 a.m., and 6:15 a.m. In the afternoon, the return bus from the city is at 2 o'clock a.m. and 3 o'clock p.m. It takes 4 hours to go back and forth. Time is too tight, so we can't do much before we have to return to the school. The winding mountain road is full of twists and turns. Kushuan didn't even eat dinner and almost vomited. It's not easy for them to make it through. Salute to the 3 men. Aspiration from the World. Volunteer Literature. The 3rd song of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League. Lyrics. Kushwan we aspire from this world also love to look up at the blue sky selflessly dedicate the hot blood of youth unwavering faith also love to smile at tomorrow sending the warmest wind out of the horizon let us shoulder to shoulder waiting for a beautiful promise how many times in this life do we have such a rare experience? Connecting each other's hearts another year went by. Sprinkling the warmest sunshine on the world we build our spirit together like the most beautiful sunny day. Chapter 604. Under normal circumstances, Jin Yuan would definitely have become suspicious. But the problem was that this was Senior Dog. For a dog like this who had gotten rid of vulgar tastes, there must be a reason for everything it did. Therefore, even if it was flying backward, there must be a reason for it. Besides, wasn't there a cultivator who rode a donkey in the past? In the end, that person really became an immortal. Soon, the 3 streaks of light approached the foot of the sacred pillar. Above the holy pillar, the clouds were indistinct, towering into the clouds and not visible. Previously, when he was far away, he could already feel the power mixed in with the demonic power. Now it was even more obvious at such a close distance. Although he had roughly guessed what the holy pillar was, it was still just a conjecture. Most of the time, if there was no evidence to prove it. Even Jin Yuan didn't dare speak so decisively. Senior Human Dog was still here. If he said the wrong thing, he would lose a lot of face. Jin Yuan stared at Dog 2 with an unreadable expression in his eyes as he tried to guess what on earth Dog 2 was trying to say. For a senior of Senior Dog's realm, every action must have its own reasoning. Perhaps there was a heavenly Tao contained within it? Jin Yuan cupped his chin in his hand, his eyes deep in thought. Could it be that the real reason Senior Dog was flying backward was some kind of hint? Is it related to the holy pillar? What does Senior Dog know? But it wasn't good for Jin Yuan to ask about it openly. Most of the time, he still needed to understand it for himself, so he kept it to himself. A man and a dog, along with Elder One, waited at the foot of the holy pillar. Not long after, a majestic demonic power surged from the top of the holy pillar. Buttface looked up and saw an old man in a white Taoist robe descending from the sky with his hands clasped behind his back. This old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He had a pair of antlers on his head, but they were of different colors. One was gold, and the other was silver. Elder One had never seen this old man before. But based on his aura alone, Elder One could guess this person's identity. This must be the legendary Saint Master, who was in charge of Demon Saint's holy palace, and assisted generations of demon saints. It was rumored that sacred experts' comprehensive fighting strength wasn't that great, but their perception abilities were extremely heaven-defying. Furthermore, their lifespans were very long. The demon saint of the demon realm had already been passed down to the 2nd generation. However, from start to finish, there was only one sacred expert. Greetings, sacred teacher. Elder One bowed respectfully and was about to kneel down when the sacred master stepped forward and helped him up. He stroked his beard and said, "The joint secretaries of the 4 inner domains can dispense with the formalities." Elder One, you don't have to be so polite. Elder One was flattered. Although this was Elder One's first time serving as the Secretary General, he was familiar with the position requirements and related regulations of the 4 inner domain joint secretariats. There's such a rule? Elder One had a shocked expression on his face. I haven't studied much, Lord Sage Teacher, please don't frame me. The Sage Master laughed in spite of himself. It's true. On your way here, I've just established this rule with the demonic sage. It won't be long before we announce it to the entire realm. Elder One. There's actually such a thing. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan were also stunned in their hearts. Directly establishing a new rule was actually possible. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the significance of this new rule. In front of Yao Saint and Sage Master, all the demons in the Yao realm had to prostrate and kowtow when they saw them. But this rule gave Elder One a special privilege. This meant that in some sense, Elder One's current status was almost on equal footing with the demon gods of the 4 inner domains. And this profound meaning, Elder One himself could naturally think of it. That was why he was so panicked. That's right, there's also this. This is a gift from Demon Saint. Suddenly, The sage master waved his hand, and a light flew out of his sleeve and landed in Elder Wen's hand. This was a token that looked like it was made of jade. After Elder Wen saw the words on the token clearly, his eyes widened like two copper bells. This is Demon Saint's token. Dog 2 recognized it at a glance. Generally speaking, only the demon gods of the 4 territories had this kind of treatment. Furthermore, the demon gods of the 4 territories only had one token, which was stored in the central bank of the demon world. This was a necessity for those who went to the foot of the Holy Pillar to seek an audience with Demon Saint and Sage Master. Furthermore, the token also contained a portion of the Holy Pillar's power, which could protect the holder against the immense pressure exerted by the Holy Pillar. Elder Wen's realm was relatively low to begin with. When he had approached the Holy Pillar earlier, he had felt a strong sense of pressure, and even his breathing had been blocked. Now that he held the token in his hand, he instantly felt the pressure being released from his body, and he felt refreshed. This, Lord Sage Master, this gift is too generous. Elder Wen was already incoherent. The significance of this token was too great. If the new demon world law from before had only been a hint, then this token was completely explicit. Elder Wen was very anxious, but Loopy Toad was overjoyed and praised this second-generation demon god in its heart for being a pretty good demon. With this token, Elder Wen's status in the demon world would rise a lot, and with it, the sky-swallowing Toad clan status as a whole would also rise. In the future, if anyone wanted to make a move against the sky-swallowing Toad clan, they would have to think twice about the weight of Elder Wen, the Secretary General. Elder Wen's hands trembled as he held the token. This was the so-called, when a demon achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to heaven. Loopy Toad was sincerely happy. Now, it could indeed let go of the past. With this Demon Saint token in hand, given Elder Wen's wisdom and strategy, as well as his grandson Wen-Yu's outstanding management talent, he would definitely be able to lead the Toad clan to a whole new level. This is what you deserve, just accept it. Sage Master's tone left no room for refusal, and Elder Wen could only accept the order. In just a few short hours, the sky-swallowing Toad clan had still been suffering from slander, and had been forced to migrate. Now they had actually received Demon Saint's favor. All of this was like a dream to Elder Wen. Of course, Elder Wen wasn't stupid. He could see that all of this had something to do with this green-furred senior dog. There were too many suspicious points. From the moment Senior Dog had appeared, the originally anxious situation had instantly changed. Had this Senior Dog already foreseen this? That shouldn't be the case, they hadn't known each other at all before. Or could it be, this Senior Dog was, at that moment, Elder Wen suddenly remembered the Toad clan's unique swallowing and spitting spell, which Senior Dog had used earlier, and he instantly had a bold idea. Chapter 605. In the past few days, I've learned a lot from the Ningxia literature collection. I'd like to thank the leaders of the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League for their hard work in leading the team. I'd also like to thank the Yuan Group for providing us with this rare opportunity to collect poems. For this collection, I've composed a total of 5 volunteer literature lyrics. The last one, Annals of Ningxia, is an ancient-style lyric. It will be the closing song for the Yuan Group's Ningxia Literature Collection Group, to say goodbye to Ningxia. The lyrics mention the teaching teams from various universities, the community social workers, the university students who returned to their hometown to rebuild their hometown, the charity restaurant of love, and so on. Due to the lack of time, we didn't have the time to visit many of the volunteers who were quietly contributing their strength in this world. We only used this song, Annals of Ningxia, to express our deepest respect for this web novelist trip. The first 4 lyrics submitted are to live, nameless hero, be yourself, and aspire to the world. If any of them is selected and wins an award, Ku Xian will immediately produce the song, Annals of Ningxia. The Central Committee of the Communist Youth League's Volunteer Literature Essay Contest for Ancient-Style Lyrics, Yuan Group's Ningxia Literature Collection Group Lyrics. Ku Xian Main Song. That year I left my hometown to teach at the foot of the mountain in the border village. White clouds, green mountains and blue waters, a cup of tea. The long lamp in the room is still lit, And the sound of reading and revising books and rolling gauze, my son's smile sprouts on his face. That year I returned home. Thick soil accompanied by wind and frost like a painting. Some people return to the old land under the stars and the moon. The power of green time is like the mountain. And life is like summer flowers. I hope the aspiring young man can show off his youth. There are many stories in this small town. Just like the Junghutherin gathers righteous guests to spread kindness all over the world. Chorus. 10 years of reincarnation writes the aspiration extends in all directions. In the coming year the hometown spreads the tales, and the world is full of peaches and plums. Engrave the memory, and turn this love into fireworks. Chapter 606. Loopy Toad hadn't expected Elder One to actually make up stories like this. It instantly didn't know how to reply. Given the current situation, it was definitely impossible for them to acknowledge each other. Otherwise, Elder One would continue to be embarrassed. So instead of that, it would be better to let Elder One continue to misunderstand. After thinking for a bit, Loopy Toad fabricated a reason that could explain itself. It stared at Elder One and pretended to muse. "It's my disciple." Elder One turned pale with fright when he heard this reason. Seeing that Elder One had been fooled, Dog 2 continued to fabricate nonsense. "Your king really isn't dead. He's the most heroic and handsome disciple I've ever seen." Elder One's mouth dropped open. He had never expected this senior dog to speak so highly of the 10th generation. However, its body was indeed destroyed. He's still in the process of reconstructing it. Previously, he sensed in his prophetic dream that the sky-swallowing toad clan was about to suffer a calamity, and he tried to escape me several times to come back here. Elder One's heart ached and his eyes turned red. It turned out that he had misunderstood the 10th generation. This old official was wrong to actually say such treasonous things to the 10th generation. Elder One lowered his head and sighed as he looked at Loopy Toad. "Then may I ask, Senior Dog?" "I came here on my own and I didn't tell him," said Loopy Toad. "Then why did you come, Senior Dog?" "There's no reason for Senior Dog to personally take action for us." "Indeed, I didn't do anything." The sound isolation spell was transparent, and Loopy Toad turned its gaze to Jin Yuan, who was standing outside the spell. "Elder One, as for why I came, I'll give you a poem," Loopy Toad said. Loopy Toad said, "I mean, when I have nothing to do, when I'm bored, when I want to, I go to a different place. Come here, you can take a look. A different place, a lot. Elder One." At the end of their conversation, Loopy Toad left the soundproof spell barrier, although it didn't acknowledge Elder One in the end. It didn't acknowledge Elder One, but Dog 2 felt that this might actually be a good ending. "Senior Dog, is the conversation over?" Sage Master Deerhorn stared at Loopy Toad and bowed. He looked at Elder One, who was sitting cross-legged not far away, pondering the meaning of the poem, and raised his eyebrows meaningfully. "Then shall we go now?" Sage Master asked. Loopy Toad nodded. "Xinyuan, how do we get there?" The Sacred Sovereign smiled. "If an ordinary person wants to meet the demonic sage, they have to climb the sacred stairs inside the sacred pillar. Of course, there is a second way, and that is for me to personally come down and pick you up." "Not Demon Saint?" Xinyuan asked. "Once you're chosen as a Demon Saint, you're not allowed to leave the peak of the Holy Pillar without permission. You can only move around the Demon Saint's holy palace." So miserable, Xinyuan and Loopy Toad broke out in a sweat. Loopy Toad now finally understood why so few of the demon gods and demon kings in the demon world had ever seen Demon Saint's true face. It turned out that Demon Saint simply couldn't come down. Now that it knew the truth, Loopy Toad suddenly felt that Demon Saint was a little pitiful. He wondered if the demon gods of the demon realm would give up searching for a way to become a demon saint if they knew that they would lose their freedom after becoming a demon saint. Sometimes, the meaning of freedom was greater than anything else. No matter how powerful one was, they would lose their freedom. Anyone would think carefully before making such a choice. No matter how good-looking you are, you're the only one in the world. What's the use? That's right, what's your name? Jin Yuan looked at the Deerhorn's Sacred Sovereign. I'm Shen Wuyue. Seniors can also call me Little Shen. The Deerhorn's Sacred Sovereign said, Then let's set off now. Teleporting directly to the top of the sacred pillar requires a magic artifact, but only I can use it. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan wanted to ask what the magic artifact was, but before they could say anything, they saw the deer-horned sacred sovereign pluck out his own antlers. Loopy Toad. Jin Yuan, is this fake? Holding the golden antlers in one hand and the silver antlers in the other, Shen Wuyue shook his head with a smile on his face. No, this is real. Then Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan heard a crisp piu sound, and blood sprayed out like a fountain from where the antlers had been plucked. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan. This was quite a lot of blood. This reminded Dog 2 of a movie called Kill Bill. Shen Wuyue then merged the golden and silver antlers together. The moment the two antlers came together, a dazzling light was released to form a teleportation magic ring in front of Shen Wuyue. Shen Wuyue tossed the antlers aside and made an inviting gesture at the magic ring. Seniors, please come in. Jin Yuan was startled when he saw the antlers that had been tossed aside. You don't want your antlers anymore? Teleporting to the top of the sacred pillar requires a lot of magic energy, so I usually store my demon energy in the antlers beforehand. Usually, I'll use the teleportation magic once, and that's the limit. Blood spurted out of Shen Wuyue's head as he smiled. But it's fine. In any case, the antlers will grow back the next day. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan. Shen Wuyue, this old man was a little strange. Shen Wuyue. It's just that before it grows back, it'll keep bleeding, and it won't stop. Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan were stunned. Are you sure you won't die? After entering the teleportation magic circle, Loopy Toad and Jin Yuan very quickly arrived at the top of the sacred pillar. Throughout the entire process, Loopy Toad completely avoided eye contact with the sacred pillar, otherwise it would find that it couldn't suppress the primordial power in its crotch at all. When Dog 2 appeared at the top of the sacred pillar, the strange feeling of wanting to pee disappeared. Dog 2 looked at the place it had once fantasized about setting foot in one day, but was a little disappointed in the end. That was because the top of the sacred pillar was really too small. It was a circular square that could be seen as far as the eye could see. Demon Saint's holy palace was in the middle of the square, and looked unremarkable, like an old church. The glass on all sides was colored glass, which gave off a colorful light. It could be said that whether it was the top of the sacred pillar or Demon Saint's holy palace, both were very different from what Loopy Toad had imagined. Furthermore, in this sesame-sized square, Demon Saint actually had restrictions on its freedom. Loopy Toad instantly felt that being Demon Saint was a pretty miserable thing. It was said that Demon Saint's power was inherited, and it didn't matter how bad one's talent was as long as one was chosen. But now that it saw the disparity in reality, Loopy Toad felt that it would rather not have this kind of power. Basking in the sun in the courtyard, going out to buy groceries with Mother Wong, swindling some money from Little Silver, acting cute with Little Master Ling. When it had nothing to do, it could also lift Sheep's skirt and tease Jinker in passing. How interesting was that? Chapter 607. How is it? The top of the holy pillar isn't as vast as you think, right? Shen Wuyue walked over from behind. His head was still bleeding profusely, and it didn't look like it was going to stop at all. Jin Yuan raised his eyebrows. Is Lord Shen sure you don't need to stop the bleeding? As I said before, I'll keep bleeding until the antlers grow back. It's no use whether I block it or apply medicine. Shen Wuyue smiled. Senior Immortal Jin Yuan, you don't have to worry too much about me. My self-healing ability is also very strong. Losing blood while making blood is actually the same as exchanging blood. I think it's pretty healthy. Jin Yuan. Loopy Toad. What if *** King healthy? Loopy Toad looked around in disappointment and deliberately put on an old-fashioned expression. I never thought the Grand Demon Saint would actually have such a small space. This is a rule set by first-generation Demon Saint. Everyone sleeps in a bed and dies in a box. There's no need for such a large space at all. First-generation Demon Saint was more concerned about the proper use of space. Shen Wuyue replied. Shen Wuyue answered. Blood had already flowed down his white robe, gradually soaking it and turning it from white to red. Doesn't the successor Demon Saint have the right to change it? The former demon saint's rules can only last for 2 generations at most. If second-generation demon saint sets any rules now, the third and fourth generations don't have the right to change them. Only the fifth-generation demon saint has the right, Shinwuyue answered. I see. Dog 2 nodded. At that moment, its and Jinyuan's expressions changed slightly as they sensed that someone was coming. A very powerful aura came out of Demon Saint's holy palace in front of them. It was a blue-skinned humanoid demon, also known as a transvestite. This transvestite held a scepter in his hand, and the fish scales on his azure skin glowed brilliantly. Just from this aura, Dog 2 and Jinyuan had already guessed who this person was. As expected of second-generation demon saint, your aura is indeed much more powerful than your virtual body. Immortal Jinyuan smiled slightly. Of course, this was just a polite remark. In his mind, the strongest person would always be his senior dog. Likewise, second-generation demon saint curled the corners of his mouth, then stepped aside to make way for them. Seniors, welcome to the Holy Palace. This was Loopy Toad's first time seeing Demon Saint, and to be honest, this image was really too different from what it had imagined. Not only did he have blue skin, he also had scales on his body. So second-generation Demon Saint's original form was a tropical ornamental fish? Seeing that senior dog was in a daze, Jinyuan asked with great concern. What's wrong, senior dog? I'm fine. Dog 2 shook its head and said in a low voice. I was just wondering why the second-generation Demon Saint's color was so strange. Jinyuan. Second-generation Demon Saint and Sage Master Shinwuyue were startled. A dog with such a strange color actually had the nerve to talk about others. Just as Buttface had expected, the Demon Saint's holy palace didn't use any spells that could expand space, perfectly implementing the first Demon Saint's concept of space. The banquet had already been set up in the holy palace, which wasn't too big. After everyone took their seats, Dog 2 saw 2 girls in maid outfits walk out from behind the curtains of the main hall of the holy palace. Jinyuan's eyes lit up. You have other people here? They're just puppets made from demon earth and don't have their own consciousness. Although the holy palace is small, we still need some people to order around. Shinwuyue smiled. There are 10 puppets like this in the holy palace, and they're all very exquisite. They were all personally made by second-generation Demon Saint. And there are all kinds of them. Mature women, lawless mature women, young married women. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. Second-generation Demon Saint. Before I became Demon Saint, I actually made puppets for a living. Shinwuyue was blank. Don't you sing Allegro? Second-generation Demon Saint. That's what I did before I made puppets. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. Just from this simple conversation, Loopy Toad and Jinyuan could already guess that this sage master Shinwuyue definitely liked to tear down second-generation Demon Saint's stage. This inevitably made Loopy Toad and Jinyuan sympathize with second-generation Demon Saint even more. In the end, before their sympathy was over, Shinwuyue started to tear down the stage again. Seniors, I have something very interesting to tell you. Shinwuyue looked at Loopy Toad and Jinyuan with a comical expression. Second-generation Demon Saint was so excited when he made them back then. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. At that moment, Loopy Toad turned its gaze to second-generation Demon Saint. For some reason, it felt that there was something wrong with second-generation Demon Saint's expression, as if he was very sad. Jinyuan. What's wrong with Demon Saint? Nothing. Shinwuyue shook his head. Maybe he's lost in the pain of making puppets back then. Didn't you say that Demon Saint was very excited? Jinyuan thought it was very strange. He was very excited before, but when second-generation Demon Saint realized that these puppets were cold from head to toe after they were formed, he couldn't get excited at all. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. When they heard the word cold, Loopy Toad and Jinyuan's sympathy for Demon Saint was almost full. As a Demon Saint, first of all, his freedom was restricted by the Holy Pillar's restriction, and then he was trapped by first-generation space restriction rule. As a result, Demon Saint's Holy Pillar didn't have the slightest bit of grandeur from the square to the Holy Palace. In the end, the Sage Master next to him had to tear him down every day, Loopy Toad felt that the most pitiful thing was still the puppets. Judging from the finesse of these puppets made from demon earth, whether it was their facial features or each strand of hair, or even each part that should be plump, second-generation Demon Saint had obviously carried out very precise arrangements and calculations in order to make these puppets look realistic enough. As a Demon Saint who had already lost his freedom and grandeur, it actually wasn't so bad to have so many puppets to keep him company. But in the end, second-generation Demon Saint had no choice but to admit a tragic fact, and that was that after these puppets were enlightened, they were cold, they couldn't be used at all. I've already taken off my pants, and this is what you show me. At this thought, whether it was Loopy Toad or Jinyuan, they already felt sympathy for Demon Saint. Chapter 608. Loopy Toad had always thought that Demon Saint was a weirdo, but it had never expected Shen Wuyue, this old man, to be even weirder. Logically speaking, there was no freedom or space here, and his assistant officer could come and undermine him at any time. Loopy Toad felt that it would go crazy if it stayed here any longer, not to mention the restrictions of the Holy Pillar. The Demon Saint that was trapped here. Seniors, please sit down. Unlike second-generation Demon Saint's expression, Shen Wuyue smiled like an idiot, and his grin was even more brilliant than a lotus flower. Blood continued to gush out of his head. Then Shen Wuyue waved his hand. Hey. Same rules, Thunder Mother and Ramu, bring the things over. Right after that, Loopy Toad saw two little Lolitas carrying large basins come to Shen Wuyue's sides, and start to use them to collect the blood gushing out of Shen Wuyue's head. Loopy Toad. Jinyuan. Furthermore, these two basins weren't ordinary basins. Although Shen Wuyue's blood continued to pour into the basins, it didn't overflow. Shen Wuyue smiled. I've made quite a few basins like this to deal with situations like this. Every time I have to use a big spell, I have to remove the antlers and activate the energy stored inside. It doesn't hurt much, but it's quite troublesome. So Senior Dog and Senior Immortal Jinyuan, do you know why I'm usually unwilling to go down to receive people? Loopy Toad. Jinyuan. A lot of blood was one thing, but the main thing this old man Shen Wuyue was that he was afraid of trouble. So under normal circumstances, if he wasn't receiving an important guest, Shen Wuyue absolutely wouldn't remove the antlers so easily. On the other side, the two little puppet maids were expressionless as they held the basins very easily to collect Shen Wuyue's blood. It was obvious that they were already very used to it. Jinyuan found it very strange as he looked at Shen Wuyue and asked, "What do you plan to do with this blood after collecting it?" Shen Wuyue. Isn't that simple? Sell it to the hot pot restaurant. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. My blood isn't as valuable as Lord Demon Saint's, but it's still dear blood. Palpitations, insomnia, and backache can all be treated. Speaking up to here, Shen Wuyue said with a slightly reminiscing expression. Actually, when the first-generation Demon Saint had just succeeded back then, the first-generation Demon Saint didn't take over. Our sacred palace is often short of funds. That's why I often sell dear blood to raise funds for our holy palace's activities. Of course, I was forced. Forced? Yeah. The first-generation Demon Saint was very Buddhist. Not only did he limit the size of the holy palace, but he also often helped the poor demon citizens. The taxes collected by our sacred palace were all used to build the Western region. Aren't there still plans for the Western region these days? It was proposed by the first generation. As long as one's academic results were good enough, and had the standard of a postgraduate student, they could apply. Last year, we received a total of more than 2,000 demon monarchs. Jinyuan raised an eyebrow. Demon King? Yeah. If he wasn't a Demon King, his diploma wasn't enough. Generally, only those who had reached the Demon King realm could obtain a postgraduate diploma. Furthermore, not everyone could participate in the Western plan. There's a total of 6 rounds of interviews, which means killing a large number of Demon Kings, Shen Wuyue said. Jinyuan. Then what are the benefits of participating in this plan? In addition to developing the demon world and contributing to it, we have an evaluation form for these Demon Kings who successfully go to the West to support the construction. Their tribe points can be increased based on their contribution. Shen Wuyue smiled. Although the demon race's outer territories are divided into 96 territories, they are also ranked. Every 5 years, the top 3 tribes in the outer territories will be compared with the bottom 3 tribes in the central territory, and the tribe with the strongest overall strength will be promoted to the central territory. Hearing this, Loopy Toad was suddenly enlightened, because it hadn't been on the throne for long when it had been in the sky-swallowing Toad clan. It didn't understand this situation at all. Listening to Shen Wuyue now, it understood. It turned out that tribes could also be upgraded. Loopy Toad noticed that when Shen Wuyue said this, second-generation demon saint's expression was one of deep bitterness and hatred, as if someone owed him millions. Then Loopy Toad heard Shen Wuyue continue. Actually, His Excellency second-generation demon saint was one of the volunteers for the construction of the western region back then. Furthermore, he took a Didi Shunfeng demon car over, and was raped on the way. Loopy Toad's and Jinyuan's hearts couldn't take it anymore. Wait. Rape. This pervert's taste was so heavy. And then? Although second-generation demon saint was still a weak chicken at that time, it was a piece of cake for him to deal with a rapist. He directly castrated him. Back to business. There have actually always been plans for the construction of the western region, not just in the demon world, but also in the human cultivation world. Shen Wuyue paused for a moment, then said, "The reason why we're talking about the construction of the human cultivation world and the demon world is because, actually, the most important reason is related to the topic we're discussing this time." When Shen Wuyue said this, Loopy Toad and Jinyuan knew that the real point was coming. Although blood was still spurting out of Shen Wuyue's head, his expression was completely different from before. He suddenly became serious. What I'm going to talk about next has to do with the sustainable development of the human cultivation world and the demon world. I hope seniors can listen carefully. Loopy Toad raised its eyes. Tell me about it? Shen Wuyue looked at second-generation demon saint, who then said, "It's like this, senior dog, senior immortal Jinyuan. Not long ago, Sage Master and I discovered a space fissure in the demon world." At the mention of the space fissure, immortal Jinyuan's expression changed slightly, because he was in fact the one who had caused so many space fissures in the demon world all these years. Before he had created the gate between worlds, the spatial structure of the demon world had actually been very stable, and it was impossible for space fissures to appear at all. Second-generation demon saint. Seniors, you definitely know that ever since a goddamn human cultivator created the gate between worlds, the spatial structure of our demon world has been messed up. A few fissures appear every now and then. Loopy Toad and Jinyuan. What was the furthest distance between people? At that very moment, a goddamn person was sitting in front of you, but you didn't know it at all. Although he felt a little guilty, Jinyuan's acting skills weren't for show. He did his best to remain calm, and didn't notice anything unusual at all. What's so special about these new space fissures? Jinyuan asked. That's what I want to say. Sage Master and I previously thought that they were new fissures because of fluctuations from the gate between worlds. But according to our investigation, we realized that these space fissures weren't formed because of the gate between worlds. Not because of the gate between worlds. Yes. Chapter 609. Demon Saint's title was very interesting to Jinyuan. Monster? What's that? Aren't you a monster yourself? Second-generation demon Saint found himself unexpectedly speechless. Of course, Jinyuan was just joking. What on earth was this thing that demon saint of the demon world called a monster? Jinyuan was a little curious. First of all, it couldn't be an ordinary demon beast, spirit beast or devil beast, otherwise demon saint wouldn't have called it a monster. At the mention of this monster, the expressions on both second-generation demon saint and Sage Master Shen Wuyue's faces changed slightly to show lingering fear. At the same time, Dog 2's curiosity was piqued. After all, the two people standing here right now were the two most powerful existences in the demon world. One was the current demon saint, and the other was Sage Master's assistant. If it was just an ordinary creature, it would be impossible for them to feel fear at all. Although second-generation demon saint wasn't the strongest demon saint of all time, after merging with the consciousness of the holy pillar of the demon world, his current true immortal strength could rival that of a venerated immortal. With the willpower of an entire world in hand, there were actually very few things that could make someone at Demon Saint's realm afraid. Dog 2 gazed at second-generation Demon Saint and Shinwuyue. I want to know what on earth this monster is. I'm afraid it's very difficult to explain this monster with words alone. I invited Senior Dog and Senior Immortal Jinyuan here this time in the hope that both seniors can help us take a look at what this monster is. Second-generation Demon Saint said. How? The corners of Jinyuan's lips curled up slightly, revealing his canine teeth, and he was a little curious. We already killed it, suddenly. Jinyuan felt a little disappointed. What? How did it die just like that? Didn't you say it was a monster? At that moment, second-generation Demon Saint suddenly untied his robe to reveal his chest, which gleamed with fish scales. Dog 2's eyes were almost blinded. Jinyuan hurriedly covered his eyes. Second-generation Demon Saint, please reconsider. I don't have this kind of hobby. Second-generation Demon Saint. Senior, you misunderstand. Please open your eyes and look at the wound on my chest. It was caused by that monster. Ancestor Jinyuan loosened his grip and looked at second-generation Demon Saint's chest with loopy toad's eyes. Second-generation Demon Saint's chest and right shoulder actually had countless hideous teeth marks. The monster had at least a few hundred teeth. How long has this wound been there? Buttface asked curiously. It's already been half a month. The Sacred Master and I have tried everything we can, but we're still unable to heal this wound. An unrecoverable wound? Immortal Jinyuan sucked in a breath. If this was the case, then the problem was much more complicated than he had imagined. The true immortal realm was completely different from the other realms, because the true immortal realm's spiritual power had a very powerful regenerative property. In battle, as long as it was a wound on the skin, it would quickly recover. Loopy Toad was naturally aware of this. In this world, there were many magic treasures or spells with the attribute of serious damage, which could prevent wounds from healing. But the point was that the person whose wound couldn't be healed was second-generation Demon Saint. Second-generation Demon Saint's current realm. Loopy Toad could only think of these two ways to inflict irreparable wounds on second-generation Demon Saint's body. Furthermore, to Loopy Toad's current limited knowledge, this was indeed the strongest method that could effectively block rapid recovery. The first method was Little Silver's spit. The other was Little Master Ling's primordial chi. But it was clear that Demon Saint's wound hadn't been caused by Little Silver or Little Master Ling. Loopy Toad's interest was instantly piqued. What about the monster's body? Let me take a look. It already had a guess in its heart, but didn't dare make any careless assertions. It needed to confirm it with its own eyes before it could believe it. In fact, Loopy Toad felt that Jinyuan should have also sensed it. After that, Shinwuyue clapped his hands, and two puppets with very beautiful figures but very cold bodies carefully carried a crystal tank into the main hall. This tank couldn't be considered too big. Its mouth only had a radius of 1 meter, but it weighed 10,000 tons, and it was sealed with a fairly thick membrane. Half a month ago, after second-generation Demon Saint and Shenwuyue had gotten rid of this monster, they had thrown its body into this crystal tank and sealed it. This crystal tank was first-generation Demon Saint's bathtub, and it's made of a very special material. At that time, we turned Demon Saint's holy palace upside down, but really couldn't find a magic artifact more suitable for sealing this monster's body, said Shenwuyue. Even though it had already been half a month, Shenwuyue was still a little frightened when he recalled the scene of the monster's appearance. Everyone gathered around this crystal tank, and second-generation Demon Saint began to recall what had happened half a month ago. Half a month ago, Sage Master and I discovered an abnormal space fissure. I used magic to move it into the holy temple, intending to mend it, but I never thought that a monster would actually jump out of it. How was the monster killed later? Before looking at the monster's body, Jinyuan wanted to get to the bottom of this first. At that time, I was ambushed by this monster and was already injured. Sage Master and I then joined forces, but who would have thought that this monster would be extremely tough and difficult to deal with? Second generation demon saint said. In the end, Sage Master and I joined hands to pray and summon the holy pillar to forcibly kill it. Speaking up to this point, Shen Wuyue also sighed. Summoning the holy pillar to forcibly kill it is actually very damaging to Lord Demon Saint's lifespan. Furthermore, each generation of Demon Saint can only use it 3 times at most. Dog 2 and Jin Yuan nodded. One man and one dog had already come to a conclusion in their hearts. If this monster was really as terrifying as second generation Demon Saint said, it should indeed attract the attention of both the demon world and the human world, since the demon planet and Earth were currently connected through the gate between worlds. Since this kind of abnormal and unknown fissure which could produce monsters could appear in the demon world, it was also possible that it could appear in the human world. Let's look at the monster first. Loopy Toad narrowed its eyes. Shen Wuyue nodded and raised his hand to remove the seal around the crystal tank. Loopy Toad floated in the air and looked inside the tank with Jin Yuan. Then, they saw a 1-meter-long black fish with a mouthful of sharp teeth inside the crystal tank. Is this a catfish? Loopy Toad was cursing in its heart when it heard Jin Yuan exclaim, "A Kuan! What the hell? Who made a mistake in refining this multi-fanged Kuan?" Loopy Toad. Second generation Demon Saint. That you're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.